Chapter 452. When the old patriarch of White Bull Tribe saw that Su Ming had lost his composure, he was momentarily stunned before ecstasy rose in his heart. He did not grieve over the loss of the tribe's sacred item. No matter how strange it was, it could not compare to the importance of his tribe members in his heart. If he had a choice, then even if he came to know that the item left behind by the previous generations of his tribe was a great treasure, he would not regret it. As long as more people in his tribe could survive this disaster, those children could grow up, and those youths in the tribe could watch their hair turn white one day. If he could do all of this, he could give up on everything else. To him, this was the greatest meaning in his life after he became the patriarch. At the same time he was filled with ecstasy, the old man also felt uneasy in his heart. This was the first time he saw Su Ming unable to control his emotions. The act of him seizing the item just now had given the old man the impression that if he had pulled his hand back, he would have definitely stirred up a storm of killing intent from Su Ming. At that moment, the old man took a few steps back and wrapped his fist in his palm to bow towards Su Ming. As Su Ming observed the sacred item in his tribe, the old man spoke respectfully. "Sir, it doesn't matter whether you will truly choose to help our weak White Bull tribe. This item will still belong to you. However, on behalf of the 379 people in my tribe, I beg you to take pity on us and help us this once." The old man, the patriarch of White Bull tribe, the old man with an ugly face, monkey-like cheeks, and a strange voice, knelt down towards Su Ming as he retreated. He was the patriarch of White Bull tribe. He had his pride. He was a medial shaman. He had his pride. In truth, if his tribe did not exist, then even if he died, he would die standing. There was no way he would kneel down so easily. Yet at that moment, for the tribe, for the familiar faces, for the young voices calling him Grandpa Patriarch, for the young men and women in the tribe he had watched grow up, he knelt down. He would never forget how none of his tribe members bore him any ill will when he was young, even though he was ugly. He would also never forget how he had fallen in love with the most beautiful girl in the tribe when he was young. He also could not forget the kind gaze and great hopes the previous patriarch had when he appointed him as the patriarch after he died. All of this was his warmth, and it was the most important part of his life. For the sake of the tribe, not to mention kneeling and begging, not to mention giving away the tribe's sacred relic, not to mention being questioned by the tribe members. He could even imagine that when the tribe members found out that the sacred relic was missing and that the sacred relic placed in the tribe was forged by him, the hatred and resentment they would have towards him would probably exist for the rest of their lives. But he chose to bear all of this. Silently, he had to endure it alone, all for the sake of the continuation of the tribe. Su Ming was his only hope. Su Ming's gaze slowly moved away from White Bull Tribe's sacred relic in his hand and looked towards the patriarch of White Bull Tribe kneeling on the ground. The wisdom this old man showed was given to him by time. His decisiveness was a part of his personality. Su Ming might not know everything he had done for his tribe, but he could still somewhat understand some of it. "I'm your only hope." After a long while, Su Ming asked languidly. Even if the old man was a shaman, even if he came from the Berserker tribe, and even if these two races were currently at war, the old man's actions made Su Ming remember his elder. The old man kneeling on the ground nodded his head lightly. Su Ming remained silent for a moment before he asked, "What if I'm not here? I'll choose to fuse with Black Crane tribe, even if the price is great. In fact, I've already guessed that Black Crane tribe will look for the strongest Berserker in the area, Madam G. In truth, if Madam G really comes to cause trouble for White Bull tribe, I have a way to make her stop." The old man lifted his head and looked at Su Ming. His face was covered in wrinkles, and at that moment his monkey-like face was filled with wisdom and age, along with a deep sense of fatigue. If your two tribesmen can't find a tribe that values them, and neither can they find a powerful Berserker who is willing to help you migrate, what will you do? Su Ming asked calmly. The old man remained silent for some time before a smile appeared on his face, and he said softly, "This is the fate of White Bull tribe. If that's really the case, then I will stay here and watch the eastern wastelands arrive with my tribesmen. I will sing the ancient ballad and dance the dance passed down in my tribe. Death is nothing to be afraid of. Su Ming looked at the old man, and respect gradually appeared on his face. This was a person who deserved his respect. Even if he was a shaman, when he said those words, Su Ming could feel that there was no falsehood in his words. If he did not have such thoughts, then even if he said those words, it would be difficult for anyone to believe him. Bring your tribesmen here at the beginning of the month of spirits. Su Ming closed his eyes, and when he opened them after a moment, he spoke flatly and turned around to walk towards the sealed cave abode in the mountain range. As a wave of ripples appeared in the seemingly empty spot, he disappeared. The old man from White Bull tribe looked at Su Ming leaving into the distance, and gratitude appeared on his face. He stood up, wrapped his fist in his palm, and bowed deeply towards the spot. Only then did he leave with hope in his heart. Su Ming walked out from the air within the sealed cave abode in the mountain range. He held White Bull tribe's sacred item in his hand and sat down cross-legged beside the black wooden club. He lowered his head and looked at the item in his hand, and excitement appeared briefly on his face. I didn't expect to see this again here. Just what is it? Su Ming sucked in a deep breath. In his hand was a round stone plate. That stone plate looked incredibly normal. Besides the small carvings on it, there seemed to be nothing special about it. However, there was a fragment about the size of a fingernail embedded at the center of the plate. The color of that fragment was slightly different from the stone plate, which was why it was incredibly obvious. The thing that made Su Ming lose his composure before the old man from White Bull tribe was the fragment embedded in the stone plate. That fragment was only the size of a fingernail, but it was entirely black and was shining with waves of dark light. That item gave off the same feeling as the strange fragment hanging around Su Ming's neck. However, compared to the one Su Ming had, this one was much smaller. This was the only thing that could make Su Ming lose his composure and snatch it. The old man had seen some clues, but compared to this small matter, obtaining this item was nothing. As he stared at the fragment, Su Ming's expression alternated between confusion and nostalgia. The memories of what happened in Dark Mountain surfaced in his head unknowingly. From a moment he obtained the black fragment to deceiving the statue of the god of berserkers so that he could practice the ways of the berserkers, to Dark Mountain's destruction, to obtaining the legacy of the wind berserker and lightning berserker. This black fragment had changed everything for him. Su Ming stared at the stone plate in a daze for a long time. When the sun set in the sky, he sighed with a complicated look on his face. For the first time in his life, those memories made him sigh. Once he calmed himself down, Su Ming removed the black fragment from his neck. The instant he placed it on the stone plate, the fragment in the stone plate immediately shone with a powerful dark light. At the same time, the fragment in Su Ming's hand also shone with a similar dark light, as if they were reflecting off each other. Soon after, Su Ming sucked in a sharp breath. The carvings on the stone plate with the fragment embedded in it started shining with a white light, and in Su Ming's eyes, they looked as if they had come to life and started rotating slowly. Yet it only rotated 3 times before the light immediately dimmed. Several cracks also appeared on the stone plate, and it looked as if it was about to shatter. A glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes, and he put away his black fragment. Only then did the stone plate not completely shatter. This thing is embedded in the stone plate. I wonder what's so special about this stone plate. I'll have to ask the patriarch of White Bull tribe next time he comes. Su Ming stroked his chin and quelled the excitement in his heart before putting away the stone plate into his storage bag. World of 9. Ancient ruins, huh? The 9 abyss flower in there can increase the chances of a berserker breaking through to the berserker soul realm and going through the great disaster of life and death. I've never heard of this before, but judging by the words of the old man from White Bull tribe, he didn't seem to be lying. The curse actually originated from this place and was mastered by the shamans. If that's the case, then perhaps there are some ancient treasures in the world of 9, such as... Su Ming lowered his head and looked at the red ring on his finger. He had never had the time to examine this item. Will the berserkers also think of a way to go there? Perhaps I'll be able to see some familiar faces there, along with the shamans. When he thought of the shamans, Su Ming felt a slight headache coming on. The chaos on Luo had made Su Ming not know what he should say if he ran into Wan Xiao and the others. After thinking about it for a moment, Su Ming shook his head and no longer thought about this troublesome matter. He knew that he could not go to the Dead Sea's glacier for the time being. The fusion of the lightning crystal would not be completed within a short period of time either. Before he waited for the people from White Bull Tribe to arrive, Su Ming decided to examine the curse and solidify the 3 styles of wind separation he had inherited from the Wind Berserker. He had also gone through a great deal of danger to snatch the black wooden club. He had to examine it during this period of time to see whether there were any other effects to it. Besides these, his clone's nascent soul was also gravely injured and needed to be carefully nursed back to health. However, the power of the world was thick in this place. Even if he did not have any spirit herbs, he could still slowly make his injuries lighter. Half a month passed by in the blink of an eye. During these 20-something days, Su Ming's clone's injuries had recovered slightly. His nascent soul was no longer disorganized. It might still be slightly weakened, but it had regained its vigor. As for the black wooden club, Su Ming might not have been able to find a way to put it into his storage bag, but he did discover that not only could he change its weight, he could also change its size. Once he shrunk it, he could bring it with him. There was also a power contained within the red ring that made Su Ming feel slightly intoxicated as he examined it. The power of the curse was incredibly great, causing Su Ming to be unable to figure out what was going on in his confusion. However, every single time he immersed his mind into it, he would be absent-minded. On this morning, Su Ming woke up from his immersion in the red ring. His face was still dazed, and he only recovered after some time had passed. The power of the curse. Su Ming mumbled softly. Suddenly, his expression changed, and he lifted his head to look at the area beyond the seal. After a moment, the old man's voice traveled into his ears faintly from outside. "Sir Soulcatcher, the patriarch of White Bull Tribe would like to see you. I brought a tribe member with the constitution of a soulcatcher." Su Ming stood up and waved his arm. Immediately, the small snake flew over and disappeared beside him. At the same time, the poison corpse turned into a ray of black light and was put away by Su Ming into his storage bag. As for his clone, his nascent soul instantly flew out and crawled into the top of Su Ming's skull. Once Su Ming put away Ji Yunhai's puppet body along with the black beetles that had fallen asleep once again, he lifted his right hand unhurriedly and pointed forward. Instantly, ripples appeared in the air before him, and a gap appeared. The old man from White Bull Tribe brought a boy and a girl with nervous expressions and walked in. Monthly votes. To be continued. If you like this work, please come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 453. At that moment, the instant the patriarch of White Bull Tribe and the boy and girl entered the sealed region outside the cave abode, Su Ming had already put on the black mask to hide his face. He stood there, his black robes contrasting with his black robes. Due to the chilling air remaining in his body and the ice sealing the gate to the void, the area around him was incredibly cold compared to the scorching world outside. Once the boy and girl entered the place nervously, they shuddered unknowingly. The breath they exhaled turned into white fog, and when they looked at Su Ming, their gazes were filled with respect. Their impression of this soul catcher was simply too deep. The scene of the red-haired Su Ming going to White Bull Tribe that day was enough to be imprinted in the depths of their memories. "Sir, these are the 2 children." The patriarch of White Bull Tribe took a few steps forward and wrapped his fist in his palm to bow towards Su Ming. "The month of spirits will begin tomorrow at the quarter of spirit hour. The god of Shaman's temple will cast an ancient spell, and at that time, all the children who possess the constitution of a soul catcher in the land of the shamans will feel a faint pull, and with the summoning of their soul catcher bloodline, they will be relocated with the help of soul stones. When they leave, they will also need soul stones." As the old man from White Bull Tribe spoke, he brought out 3 crystalline white stones from his bosom. These 3 stones were round and looked rather crystalline, but not clear. These 3 soul stones were items passed down through generations in White Bull Tribe. They were specially prepared for those with the constitution of soul catchers to become soul catchers. The old man from White Bull tribe placed them respectfully by the side. Sir, once you help these two children become soul catchers, you can send them back to Shaman City. Sir, you must be going out alone. No matter when you are in the world of Nine, you can use these soul stones to return to any place with the wizard's pagoda. The old man from White Bull tribe bowed deeply towards Su Ming once again, then lifted his head to look at the boy and girl. A stern look appeared on his face. Both of you, listen well. You must obey the Lord's soul catcher's orders. If you don't obey, and if you have any other thoughts, then think about your tribe. Sir, if these two children don't obey you, then you have the right to kill them. If they don't care about the tribe's troubles, then it would be better for them to die in the world of Nine. The boy and girl immediately put on respectful expressions and lowered their heads in nervousness. Sir, please. The old man from White Bull tribe cast the boy and girl a complicated look before he eventually looked at Su Ming and spoke softly. They can stay. You can leave, Su Ming said slowly. The old man from White Bull tribe cast the boy and girl another glance, then turned around swiftly and walked outside. Yet right at the instant he was about to walk out of the seal, Su Ming's lips suddenly moved. The old man's footsteps faltered, and he turned his head around to look at Su Ming. There hasn't been anyone who has been able to control this thing for several generations. However, it is recorded in the ancient records of the tribe that this thing will choose its own master. Its greatest use is tracking. As for its origins, I've already investigated it. As the old man spoke, he hesitated for a moment before he brought out a wooden slip from his bosom and gave it to Su Ming gently. The wooden slip floated towards Su Ming, and once he caught it, he scanned it with his divine sense before he nodded. The old man bowed and walked out of the area of the seal. As ripples spread out, his body disappeared, and only Su Ming, the girl, and the boy were left in the place. Su Ming did not bother himself with the boy and girl. He sat down cross-legged on the ground and started examining the wooden slip carefully. The boy and girl from White Bull tribe were both incredibly beautiful, but due to their fear, they looked as if they were shivering. The two of them looked at each other, then obediently sat down at a spot not too far away from Su Ming. They were both silent, as if they did not know what to say. Time trickled by, and soon night arrived. There were no stars in the dark sky. Even the moon was hidden behind the clouds. Only when it occasionally peeked out would gentle moonlight appear on the ground. It was quiet all around them. Su Ming held the wooden slip in his hands and closed his eyes in contemplation. The boy and girl were a little stiff and numb, perhaps because they had not moved in this cold place for a long time, but they did not dare get up. They could only rub their bodies with their hands. Because of the coldness of the land itself, the temperature in the area was much colder. The young man and woman were both cold and afraid, and had used up a great deal of their mental energy. Gradually, they began to feel sleepy. However, just as they were about to fall asleep, a strange cry suddenly rang out from within the mountain range. That sound came too suddenly, causing the boy and girl to immediately wake up. When they looked over nervously, they saw a fiery red figure charging towards them from the mountain range, not too far away in the dark. Once it got closer, the boy and girl saw clearly that it was a fiery red ape. The fire ape scratched its head and paced around Su Ming, who was meditating, before looking towards the boy and girl. It bared its teeth and put on a fierce look. It even pretended to drool on the ground and walked towards them with a low growl. The boy and girl's faces immediately turned pale. The murderous aura coming from the fire ape made their bodies, which were already cold to begin with, tremble even more. It was especially so when the fire ape charged towards them. The boy let out a shrill cry and quickly retreated, but a huge gust of wind appeared beside him, and the fire ape immediately closed in on him. The fire ape did not chase after him. Instead, a playful and disdainful look appeared on its face. It sat down beside the pale girl, who did not retreat, and turned its head around to cast a few scrutinizing glances at her. The girl looked to be only about 15 or 16 years old. Her face was fair, and her eyes were like those of a phoenix. She might be afraid, but she was looking at the fire ape with determination. The fire ape bared its teeth at the girl, but even so, the girl continued sitting there. Her face had turned slightly paler, but she did not show any signs of panic. As if it felt that it was a little bored, the fire ape lay down on the ground. Not long after, it fell into a deep sleep. However, following its arrival, the young girl immediately felt that her surroundings were no longer as cold. Waves of hot air were emitted from the ape's body, causing the coldness in her body to slowly turn into warmth. Her eyes immediately lit up. As she looked at the snoring fire ape, she no longer found it to be fierce. She was intelligent to begin with, and once she thought about it, she understood that the fire ape did not harbor any ill will. "Thank you, Senior." The girl stood up and spoke softly to Su Ming, who was meditating with his eyes closed not too far away. Su Ming did not seem to have heard her, and continued meditating. The girl did not mind. She walked lightly to the fire ape's side and lifted her hand as if she was going to touch the fire ape's fur. Yet at that moment, the boy who had crawled into the distance and was trembling in fear immediately widened his eyes. He looked as if he wanted to warn the girl, but he was also afraid that the ape would wake up. Yet the moment the girl's hand was about to touch the fire ape opened its eyes and bared its teeth at the girl and started growling. It looked incredibly terrifying, as if it wanted to devour someone. Fear rose in the girl's heart, but a faint smile appeared on her face. She pressed her right hand firmly on the fire ape's fur and started stroking it gently. The boy's breathing almost froze at that moment. The fire ape's growls gradually became weaker. It cast a glance at the girl, then decided to lie down once again and let her stroke its fur. Before long, a look of pleasure appeared on its face, causing the girl to let out a peal of laughter that sounded like silver bells. "Ahu, come here. It's fine, it's warm here," the girl called out to the boy. The boy hesitated for a moment. Just as he lifted his foot and was about to walk over, the fire ape lifted its head and bared its teeth at him. The boy immediately shuddered, and no matter what, he did not dare to get too close. Yet even so, the spot where he stood was no longer cold, and warmth also returned to his body. The night passed by just like that. The girl leaned against the warm fire ape and yawned before falling asleep on it. The boy, on the other hand, was filled with envy, but he was also filled with fear, and he could not fall asleep. The fire ape's arrival this time might not have been able to tell everything about the two people's personalities, but it was enough for him to gain some information. When the first rays of sunlight shone on the ground, Su Ming opened his eyes and swept his gaze across the girl and boy. The boy is only envious, not jealous. He might be weak, but when he saw his companion taking a risk, he became anxious. He's a simple person, but he still needs more training. As for the girl, she's bold but meticulous. She can tell from the details that as long as she doesn't make any mistakes, then she won't be in any danger. She can also tell that I was the one who asked the fire ape to come here and get rid of the cold for them. And once she makes a decision, she won't give up easily. If she can continue like this, then perhaps she will be able to walk further than the boy in the path of cultivation. But this sort of personality makes her a little stubborn and extreme. She also trusts others easily and is a little childish. Perhaps the chances of her dying are much higher compared to the boy. The two people White Bull Tribe sent over this time are still acceptable. Su Ming averted his gaze and closed his eyes once again. He judged a person based on himself. Time passed by once again. When noon arrived, the boy and the girl had already woken up. The fire ape was nowhere to be found. The instant Su Ming opened his eyes once again, the three white soul stones placed before him suddenly let out a gentle light. It was as if they had absorbed the sunlight from the sky, but that light was not strong. Su Ming cast him a glance and lifted his right hand to swing it in the air. Immediately, a gap appeared in the seal in the sky, allowing sunlight to descend and shine on the three soul stones. The boy and girl also stood up at that moment and looked at the three soul stones nervously. "Say, Senior, can we go over?" The one who spoke was the girl. Her voice was weak, and it was clear that in her eyes, her impression of Su Ming was one of respect. Once Su Ming nodded, the girl took a few brisk steps forward and arrived beside the three soul stones. The girl followed closely behind. Her legs were slightly trembling, and she sat down. The two of them closed their eyes at the same time, and once they cast some unknown method, the 3 soul stones immediately let out a piercing light. That light spread outward swiftly, and once it enveloped Su Ming, it shot out a powerful ray of light towards the sky. That light lasted for the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn before it slowly disappeared. As the light faded away, Su Ming, the boy and girl, disappeared. The gap in the seal in the sky also gradually closed up, and the place returned to normal. When the powerful light rose into the sky, the old man in White Bull tribe lifted his head and looked at the sky with anticipation on his face. The hope of my White Bull tribe rests on you. To be continued. If you like this work, please come to Chidian. Come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 454. The target for this week's monthly votes is 4,200 votes. To achieve this target, Airgen is prepared to release more than 12 chapters in the next 3 days. More than 12 chapters, not fixed at 12 chapters. Currently, the total number of votes is 3,830, only 370 votes away from 4,200 votes. By 12 p.m. tomorrow, if the monthly votes reach 3,900, I will release another chapter. When the monthly votes reach 4,000, I will release another chapter. When the monthly votes reach 4,100, I will release 2 more chapters. When the monthly votes reach 4,200, I will release 3 more chapters. There's no way to increase anymore. 7 chapters is the limit. I will not be greedy for the monthly votes. I will be satisfied with 4,200 votes. To be continued. If you like this novel, you're welcome to come to Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 455. The world of Nine was discovered by the Ninely tribe when the shamans first arrived. It's a rather large ruin from ancient times, and it seems to be located in a different dimension from the land of the Berserkers. It was named Nine because the Ninely tribe explored it and occupied a small area within it. After that, it was controlled by the god of Shaman's temple, and they built the only city the Shaman tribe had in this place. That city was named Shaman City. The rather youthful voice of a teenager whispered in Su Ming's ears. The sky was gray and cloudy. Clouds tumbled about. Occasionally, lightning would flash by and thunder would roar. Due to the heavy layers of clouds pressing down on the ground, it gave off an oppressive feeling to all those who saw it. The word "een" is because when this place was discovered, it was filled with a thick aura of death. That aura of death could kill a living person in an instant, and there were also a lot of dangers in this place. That's why it was named een. As the teenager mumbled softly, Su Ming swept his gaze across the area. They were in a forest filled with fog. The trees in the forest did not have any leaves, but they were not withered. Instead, they were as hideous as human fingers, and they filled the entire mountain range in a disorderly manner. The world of Nine is big, and the Shaman tribe can only occupy a small part of it. However, the few discoveries we made here allowed the shamans to have 3 additional realms that we can practice. One of them is soul catchers. This is because the ancestors of the Shaman tribe found a complete carcass of the candle dragon in this place. Even if there were some records of this ancient ferocious beast, most of them were incomplete, and many people thought that it was just a rumor. It's impossible for the world to give birth to a life form that can see light when it opens its eyes and darkness when it closes its eyes. They thought that this was just a myth created by the ancestors of ancient times because they did not care about the sun, moon, and stars. But the discovery of this carcass changed everything. The teenager's breathing quickened, and anxiety appeared in his eyes as he spoke quickly. Su Ming was sitting cross-legged on a mountain rock and looking at the hideous forest before him. The teenager was standing by his side. As for the girl, she was 100-something feet away. Her body was tied up by a tree trunk. Her face was pale, and she was struggling nonstop. There was a dagger in her hand, and it was stabbed into the tree trunk. Green liquid seeped out. "Continue," Su Ming said slowly. The candle dragon's complete carcass might have been dead, but there was still a powerful will left in it. The ancestors of a shaman tribe discovered that only those who possessed unique constitutions could absorb a wisp of that will into their bodies and use it to train themselves. With the candle dragon's will as the foundation, they could train in the candle dragon's inborn divine ability. This is the source of the soul catcher. But for some reason, the candle dragon's carcass cannot be brought out of this place. That's why the legacy of the Moon of Souls, which happens once every 10 years. At the beginning of the Moon of Souls, every tribe will bring out the soul stones they prepared so that the tribesmen in the tribe who can make the soul stone shine can use the power of the soul stones to activate the spell of the god of Shaman's temple and enter the ninth world. The young man's voice trembled. He saw that the girl's face was already pale, and she did not seem to have much strength left in her dagger. There was even a faint aura of death on her face. But she was still struggling. "Senior, please save Lon Lon. She can't take it anymore. She should know her mistakes. Please." Su Ming's expression remained as calm as ever. He cast the boy a cold glance and spoke languidly. "Continue." The boy shuddered, and after a moment of silence, he began speaking in a low voice. "Besides the candle dragon's carcass, we also found an altar here. That altar was built from a beast's head, and it's said that it's incredibly big. There's a power that is not weaker than the candle dragons on it. That power is not a will, but a strange power that cannot be described with words. Most of the shamans will hallucinate under this power until they die. But there is one type of person who will not die after the hallucinations appear in this place. When they walk out, they will possess a similar power, and that is Thought's soothsayer." As the boy spoke, the girl's struggles gradually weakened. Her breathing was labored, and blood drained from her face. The dagger in her hand fell to the ground. At the same time, the other branch of the strange tree was lifted slowly. The tip of that branch was incredibly sharp, and it stabbed towards the girl's forehead. Yet the instant the branch was about to stab her, virescent light shone on Su Ming's body, and the small virescent sword shot out with a whistle. It sliced through the tree trunk and cut it down, causing the tree to tremble viciously. The small virescent sword flashed once again and continued cutting down all the branches on the tree. It even circled the girl once, and immediately all the branches on her body shattered. Her body fell to the ground in an instant. She gritted her teeth, and once she struggled to get up, she picked up the dagger. She did not immediately run back to Su Ming, but instead turned around and used the dagger to stab into the main trunk of the tree, causing the tree to tremble furiously. She pulled out the dagger and quickly ran toward Su Ming. When she was 10 feet away from Su Ming, she knelt down on the ground with a thud and lowered her head. Her face was still pale. "Senior, I was wrong." "What's wrong?" Su Ming cast the girl a glance. There were many bruises on her body, and she was bleeding profusely. "I shouldn't have been greedy for the dagger stuck in the tree trunk after we were relocated and before you said anything, Senior. I shouldn't have tried to pull it out when I was 100 feet away from you. Please give me a chance. I won't be reckless anymore." The girl lowered her head. There was still lingering fear on her face. The scene just now had truly made her feel death and despair. "You're not wrong." Su Ming stared at the girl with his profound eyes under the mask. The girl was momentarily stunned. She lifted her head to look at Su Ming, and a dazed look appeared on her face. "If you want something, then you have to pay a price. The more you gain, the greater the price you have to pay. Riches come from danger. Since you like this dagger, then you have to be prepared to pay the price when you take it. What you went through just now is the price you have to pay. Think about it. I made a promise with your elder, but I can only save you 3 times, Su Ming said calmly. You're bold, but careful. You know that even if you run into danger, I will still save you. You're stronger than him in this aspect. But when you're still weak, you have a strong reliance on others. You don't face too many dangers and aren't cautious. You can't compare to him in this aspect. Su Ming averted his gaze from the girl and looked at the gray world in the distance. Ahu, continue. The boy cast a concerned look at the girl kneeling on the ground. then lowered his head and voiced his obedience before he continued speaking beside Su Ming. As for the third place, it's a mass grave where an unknown number of people have died. The aura of death there is so thick that it's said that it's almost corporeal. That place is the birthplace of spirit mediums. Those who possess the constitution of spirit mediums can sense the grief of the dead there, and from there, they can sympathize with the dead and treat them coldly. That way, they can obtain the power of death. The area of 1 million li around Shaman City is the area where the shaman tribe has set up their roots. Beyond that is a forbidden area, and the tribe members who come here are forbidden from entering. Once they do, there are very few who survive. As the boy spoke, the girl moved to Su Ming's side. His words echoed in her head, and she lowered her head to look at the dagger in her hand with a pensive look. As the beginning of the month of spirits approaches, people with soul devourers' constitutions will appear in different locations within a range of 5 million kilometers. They can't be controlled, and they'll be teleported here using soul stones. Once they appear, you must remember 3 things. First, do not try to explore the area. Instead, you must check the marks on the soul stones as soon as possible and head to Shaman City as soon as possible. Once you register your status in the tribe, you will receive the items and a map given by the god of Shaman's temple. Only then can you begin your training as a soul catcher. The second point was that it was strictly forbidden for members of the same tribe to quarrel with each other. It was also strictly forbidden for members of the same tribe to form alliances with people from other tribes before they had completed their soul catcher cultivation. Third, do not be greedy. Once you complete your training as a soul catcher, immediately return to Shaman City. When he said those words, the boy cast Su Ming a glance. When he saw that Su Ming's expression remained the same, he continued speaking. There are several types of dangers in the world of Nainin. The first is the invaders from other races, and it is inevitable for us to kill each other. The second is the shaman tribe. Since there are less than 100 cultivators who complete their training as a soul catcher every time the month of spirits opens, then we can make a rough guess that there is a high possibility that there is a limit to the number of soul catchers. Perhaps it's because there are too many of them and it's difficult for us to absorb enough wills, or perhaps there are other reasons. That's why we have to be careful of the people from other races. The third is the endless number of seals in this place, and the dangers formed by the numerous ferocious spirits. The boy's words faltered for a moment. Senior, I'm done. The elder asked me to tell you all these once I came here, without missing a single word. I've memorized it many times in the tribe. As the boy spoke, he looked at Su Ming nervously. Su Ming's expression remained the same, but he was slightly displeased in his heart. The patriarch of White Bull tribe had not mentioned that there were shamans killing each other in this place. If that was the case, then this matter would not be so easy to complete. However, since the old man from White Bull tribe was worthy of his respect and had brought out an item that shocked Su Ming, since Su Ming agreed to help, he would not say anything else. Su Ming stood up and said flatly, "See where Shaman City is and how far it is from here. We'll go to Shaman City to register your tribe first. Then we won't stay here for long. We'll leave immediately." The girl immediately brought out a soul stone from her bosom and bit the tip of her finger to squeeze out a drop of blood before pressing it on the soul stone. Immediately, the stone let out a faint light and showed them the way. It's about 300,000 leagues from here. The girl let out a sigh of relief and pointed in the direction of the strange forest. They could be considered lucky to be able to reach 300,000 leagues away from Shaman City if they wanted to relocate at will. Let's go. Su Ming walked forward calmly. Green light shone around his body, and the small sword spun in the air to protect the boy and girl as it followed Su Ming into the strange forest. To be continued. If you like this work, please Kamachidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 456. According to the girl's original thoughts, Su Ming should have cut down all the trees as he walked through the forest filled with strange trees so that he could walk out of the forest at the fastest speed possible. However, Su Ming's actions puzzled the girl. Su Ming was cautious with each step he took. Most of the time, he chose to walk in places where the trees were not dense, and because of that, his speed was much slower. However, the girl did not dare speak. She was uncertain about Su Ming's level of cultivation, but her impression of Su Ming with his red hair was incredibly deep. That was why, even though she was uncertain, she still believed that the elder's choice should not be wrong. When they walked out of the forest for a day, several long arcs charged through the sky with an incredibly shocking momentum. Wherever they went, the layers of clouds would look as if they were about to be torn apart. There were 5 people within those long arcs. 4 of them were boys and girls. The one in the lead was an incredibly handsome middle-aged man. His face was cold and callous, and his entire body exuded the presence of a powerful berserker. When he passed by the strange forest, he lowered his head and looked down. He seemed to have seen Su Ming and the other 2, but once he swept his gaze past them, he chose to ignore them and charged forward with the 4 other boys. When the girl saw all of this, anxiety rose in her heart. She cast a glance at Su Ming, and after hesitating for a long time, she chose to remain silent. Only the boy had a completely different attitude from the girl. He felt that this was good. He could avoid as much trouble as possible. Besides, he also felt that the 5 people flying in the sky just now were a little too ostentatious. In a world of 9 that was filled with danger, flying in such an ostentatious manner was not a good thing. When night arrived on the first day, the 3 of them were in the forest. 9 moons appeared in the sky. When Su Ming saw the 9 moons, his pupils shrank. The 9 moons let out a gentle moonlight that scattered on the ground, causing the ground to be covered in a fluorescent glow. The sky also became much gentler, and the layers of clouds seemed to have scattered during the night. Rest. Su Ming's footsteps came to a halt, and he stopped at a spot where there were not many strange trees around him. Once he finished speaking, he sat down cross-legged on the ground, averted his gaze from the moon in the sky, and closed his eyes to meditate. The girl felt rather resigned. She felt that they should continue moving forward and head to Shaman City as soon as possible. In fact, she even felt that they should fly instead of walking. If they just walked like that, they would have no idea how long they would need to travel the 300,000 leagues. Lon, do you want some water? Even as the young woman fell helpless, the young man walked up to her, pulled out a leather bag, and handed it to her. Ahu, if we continue like this, how long will it take for us to reach Shaman City? The girl took the leather bag and took a sip of water before she mumbled softly. I think no matter how long we walk, it's fine as long as we can guarantee our safety. The young man named Ahu scratched his head and said with a smile, Safety? All you care about is safety. You're always like this in the tribe. This is a very cowardly act. Do you know that? Besides, I don't think it's safe either. It's safer if we fly in the sky. We can leave this strange forest as soon as possible. The girl glared at him and became displeased. It was clear that she was venting her frustrations during the day on the young man. The young man mumbled a few words and did not dare speak again. It was clear that he was very afraid of the girl. After some time, he brought out some food from his bosom and placed it before the girl. All you care about is eating. The girl scolded him a few more times, but when she saw the young man's expression, she rolled her eyes at him and no longer bothered with him. Su Ming looked calm as he sat on the ground, but in truth, he was very alert. He had spread his divine sense out a little during the day, and within an area of 10,000 leagues, he found that the strange forest was all around him. He also had a vague feeling that as they walked through the forest, there were countless pairs of eyes watching them. However, compared to those invisible gazes, Su Ming noticed that there were even more of these gazes in the sky, especially within the dark clouds during the day. In fact, when Su Ming scanned the area with his divine sense, he felt a vague sense of apprehension. That was why he did not choose to fly. When he saw the 5 people flying through the sky during the day, Su Ming immediately sensed that the invisible gazes in the sky had locked onto those 5 people with a greedy look. Once he did so, he completely gave up on the thought of flying in the sky. Even if the path he took while walking through the forest did not seem like much, but once he spread out his divine sense, he found the path that had the least amount of gazes on them. Only by doing so could he feel slightly at ease. However, it was clear that the boy and girl would not know about these things. There was no way Su Ming would not be able to tell the girl's resignation and thoughts, but there was no need for him to explain himself. At that moment, as he sat down, Su Ming opened his eyes to a slit and looked towards the 9 moons in the sky once again. A faint glint appeared in his eyes. 9 moons? I wonder if I cast the Fire Berserker art here and execute the burning of blood, just how effective would it be? Su Ming did not act rashly. That thought only appeared briefly in his head before it disappeared without a trace. The night passed by without a word. When morning arrived, Su Ming stood up and continued walking forward with the boy and girl. On that day, the path they took was even more incomprehensible to the girl, because there were a few times when they took a long detour. The only similarity was that there were fewer trees in the areas they took. In fact, there were some places where there were no strange trees at all. If there was no comparison, perhaps the girl would have endured it, but when dusk was about to arrive on the second day, a loud boom came from the distance. When that muffled boom traveled forth, Su Ming stopped and turned his head around to look. His gaze pierced through the forest, and he saw a bare-chested man walking in front of them with a ferocious smile on his face 1,000 feet away. He held a gigantic battle axe in his right hand, and wherever he went, the trees would shatter and leave behind a large amount of green liquid. Behind the man were 2 boys. Their faces were also filled with excitement as they followed closely behind him, stepping on the green liquid and quickly walking past. There was a girl sitting on the man's shoulder. She was also about 15 or 16 years old. She swung her legs and looked very pleased with herself. When Su Ming and the other 2 looked towards them, the girl sitting on the man's shoulder laughed and spoke, even though there were some trees blocking their view due to the distance of 1,000 feet between them. "Which tribe are you from?" "We're from Peaceful Field Tribe. What about you?" Lon Lon looked at the girl sitting on the man's shoulder enviously. The presence exuding from the man's body made it clear that he was a medial battle shaman. When she saw the strange trees exploding under the man's axe, and the group moving forward at a speed that was several times faster than hers, she could not help but become even more displeased towards Su Ming. "We're from White Bull Tribe. My name is Lon Lon," the girl immediately said. Su Ming frowned by her side, and the boy even went up to tug at Lon Lan's sleeve. "The elders said that before we become soul catchers, we can't have too much contact with other tribes," Ahu said in a low voice. "White Bull Tribe? I've never heard of it before. It must be a small tribe. The places you're walking in are rather secluded. Could it be that you're afraid of these trees? How about this? I'll allow you to follow behind us." The girl sitting on the man's shoulder smiled, and there was a hint of arrogance in her tone. Once she finished speaking, without waiting for Lon Lan's reply, the girl quickly left into the distance with the 2 boys behind him as the man opened the path. One of the 2 boys even turned his head back to cast a glance at Su Ming and the other 2 before they left. There was a slight hint of disdain on his face. "Let's go." Su Ming's expression remained calm. At that moment, he averted his gaze and turned around to continue walking according to the path he had sensed with his divine sense. At that moment, he had a strong feeling that all the invisible gazes in the forest had been instantly attracted by the burly man. The burly man's existence was like a ball of flame in the night, attracting all the existences in the dark. But why are we still walking here? That place has already been cleared. Why can't we go there? The girl called Lon Lon could no longer hold herself back after enduring it for 2 days. Also, the others are flying in the sky, and they're very fast. Even if they don't fly in the sky, they're still charging through the forest. This way we can get out of this strange forest faster and head to Shaman City faster. If we get there faster, we can also attract a lot of people's attention. This is also good for White Bull Tribe, the girl said anxiously. When she spoke, Su Ming acted as if he did not hear her. He did not even turn his head back. There was not a single hint of emotion on his face as he continued walking forward. Anguish appeared on the boy's face. He looked at Su Ming walking into the distance, then at Lon Lon. "Lon Lon, the elder chose you to protect us. I think He must have his own reasons for his choice. Shut up. The girl was originally angry that Su Ming ignored her, and now she vented her anger on the boy. The boy mumbled a few more words and simply allowed the girl to vent her anger. He tried to persuade her in a low voice, and eventually, with a hint of unwillingness in her heart, she chased after Su Ming with the boy. Time passed by, and in the blink of an eye, 4 days went by. During these 4 days, the girl saw a few more people flying in the sky, and she began to doubt Su Ming's power. However, she did not notice that there were faces that looked like humans protruding out from the surface of some of the trees on the path they took the day before. Those faces were filled with pain, but it was difficult to tell that the faces were the same color as the trees at first glance. People would think that those were the patterns on the trees themselves. If anyone took a closer look at those faces, they would find that there was a man, a girl, and 2 boys. Monthly votes. To be continued. If you like this work, please come to Chidian. Come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 457. I really don't know why the elder chose him. He's so cowardly, just like Ahu. We actually walked through this forest for 10 days. Another 5 days passed by, and Su Ming brought the girl and boy out of the forest. On the way, they did not run into any sort of danger, especially during the last few days. Su Ming's speed had increased by a large margin, causing the girl's resentment to dissipate slightly, but it was still very strong. There's no danger here at all. We wasted 10 days for nothing. The people who overtook us on the way should have already reached Shaman City by now, but we've only walked a short distance. The girl was incredibly angry, especially when she saw Su Ming's indifferent attitude towards everything. It made her feel as if she could not vent her anger, and it was incredibly uncomfortable for her to hold it in. Because of that, the boy also became her punching bag. He was always scolded during the past few days, but there was never a hint of dissatisfaction on the boy's face. Every single time, he would try to persuade and comfort her. When they walked out of the forest and saw an endless plain before their eyes, the girl did not know that there were quite a number of corpses in the trees in the forest behind her. These corpses had numerous branches pierced through them, and liquid was being sucked out to nourish the trees. These corpses were all dried up, and as time passed by, they would become a part of the trees. Su Ming turned his head back and cast a glance at the strange forest. His expression was calm, but he had noticed most of the corpses that had been absorbed by the trees through some unknown method. The world of Nainin, what a place. This is still within the territory of the Shaman tribe, and it's already so dangerous. But the Shaman tribe has occupied this place for many years, and they should know all the dangers within these 1 million lease like the back of their hands. If that's the case, why would the people who came here still be so reckless? This was something that Su Ming could not quite understand. It was understandable if White Bull Tribe did not know the dangers in this place. After all, White Bull Tribe was practically cut off from the world and was located in a remote area. It was difficult for them to know the details of this place, but the other tribes could not be like White Bull Tribe. As Su Ming was immersed in his thoughts, his expression suddenly changed. His gaze fell on the forest, and he heard rustling coming from there. Soon after, a middle-aged man walked out with an exhausted look on his face. Behind it was a boy. That boy's face was pale, and his right arm was thin and shriveled. Su Ming had seen the middle-aged man once before. He was the one who had flown past the sky with an aloof expression 10 days ago with 4 teenage boys and girls. Su Ming was not the only one who recognized the middle-aged man. Ahu and Lan Lan also recognized him at first glance. Ahu's pupils shrank, and Lan Lan was momentarily stunned. The middle-aged man also saw Su Ming and the other 2 at that moment, and surprise appeared on his face. Clearly, he had also recognized Su Ming. He could vaguely remember seeing these 3 people in this strange forest 10 days ago. At that time, his heart was calm, and he didn't pay much attention to those unrelated to him. He only noticed these 3 people because they were walking in the forest and not sprinting. Their strange behavior caught his attention, but it was just a glance. Yet when he saw Su Ming, the middle-aged man's heart trembled, and a faint hint of shock appeared in his eyes. He noticed that Su Ming did not look disheveled or injured. But that was not all. After all, Su Ming was clearly someone who had been sent to protect the children, just like him, but the boy and girl beside Su Ming were also not injured or disheveled. This made the middle-aged man unable to help but be shocked. He knew just how strange and terrifying the forest was at that moment. It could be said that he had gone through a near-death experience and had even used his enchanted treasures and divine abilities to protect his life. Only then did he manage to bring one person out of this place. And even so, that boy's right arm could be said to have been crippled. It was precisely because he knew just how terrifying the forest was at that moment that he was shocked by Su Ming and the other two's current appearances. He immediately remembered how Su Ming had walked 10 days ago. If he had not run into Su Ming, he would not have thought too much about it. But once he saw Su Ming, he immediately remembered what he discovered when he ran into danger a few days ago and fled. He realized that the faster he walked in the forest, the more dangerous it would be. If he walked calmly, the danger would be reduced by half. Besides his divine abilities, this was the main reason why he had been able to escape from the forest with his people. When the middle-aged man remembered how Su Ming had been walking 10 days ago, he was shocked, but at the same time, he became wary of Su Ming. He absolutely did not believe that Su Ming was lucky. This sort of thing had absolutely nothing to do with luck. I am Nan Gonghen. Compared to how I looked 10 days ago, I've embarrassed myself. Nan Gonghen smiled wryly and wrapped his fist in his palm to bow towards Su Ming. His attitude was incredibly polite. Su Ming wrapped his fist in his palm to return the greeting and asked another question without batting an eyelid. What do you mean, embarrass myself? I am Mo Su. I remember that you flew through the sky that day. Why did you walk out of the forest now? Brother Mo, why ask when you already know the answer? The sudden change in the forest caught me off guard. I was surprised when I saw you walking that day, but by the looks of it now, you have great foresight. Nan Gonghen shook his head and smiled wryly. I just thought that there was something strange about this forest. I was just lucky to be able to walk out. If I was in your shoes, it would have been difficult for me to walk out, Su Ming said calmly. Brother Mo, you don't have to be so humble. Nan Gonghen shook his head, but he gained a slight liking towards Su Ming. Nan Gonghen cast a glance at Lon Lon and Ahu, who were standing beside Su Ming, and asked, Brother Mo, which tribe are you protecting? It's a small tribe that's located in a remote area. Brother Nangong, you won't have heard of it. Su Ming smiled and avoided the question. Yet when the girl saw the middle-aged man, excitement appeared on her face, and she quickly said, We're from White Bull Tribe. Su Ming frowned. Nan Gonghen was also momentarily stunned, but soon he smiled and no longer bothered himself with the girl. He had only asked that out of politeness. He had never expected Su Ming to answer. Since the girl had spoken, then in his eyes, he could vaguely tell that there was some sort of problem between Su Ming and White Bull Tribe. Nan Gonghen hesitated for a moment, then cast Su Ming a glance before he wrapped his fist in his palm and spoke politely. Brother Mo, our targets should be Shaman City. There's still quite a distance between us. Why don't we team up? We can look after each other. Su Ming did not immediately answer. He first cast a cold glance at the girl, and there was a chilling look in his eyes, as well as a warning look. The girl also knew that she had been a little too rash just now. When she saw Su Ming looking at her coldly, she immediately lowered her head. As for the boy, he looked at Su Ming with a pleading look. If this happens again, you won't be able to obtain my protection anymore. I made a promise with your patriarch that only one of us can complete it. Su Ming's voice echoed in the girl's head. This method of sending his voice to her using the secret method made the girl's heart tremble. Once he dealt with the girl, hesitation appeared on Su Ming's face. After some time, as Nan Gonghen waited for him, he nodded. Joy immediately appeared on Nan Gonghen's face, and he let out a hearty laugh. If I'm being honest with you by my side, I'll feel a little more confident, or else I really don't know whether there will be any sudden changes like this in the forest ahead of us. This is very strange. The wooden slip given by the god of Shaman's temple didn't mention anything about the terrors of this forest. I also remember that when I first came here, my companions also passed through this forest, and they didn't see any danger. Brother Nangong, could you let me take a look at that wooden slip? I don't understand the changes in this place either, Su Ming said unhurriedly. He had agreed to travel with this person because he was not familiar with this place and was also wary of this so-called sudden change in the forest. Nangong Hen cast a glance at the boy and girl beside Su Ming and seemed to have understood something. With a smile, he brought out a wooden slip from his bosom and handed it to Su Ming. Once Su Ming took it, he scanned it with his divine sense. There was a complete map inside. That map covered an area of 1,000,000 lis, and right at the center was a city. The shaman tribe's territory was clearly shown on the map. This was exactly what Su Ming needed. Once he memorized it, he was just about to return the jade slip to Nangong Hen. I'll give this to you, Brother Mo. I still have another, Nangong Hen said with a smile. If that's the case, thank you. Su Ming smiled and wrapped his fist in his palm towards Nangong Hen. The two of them flew up at the same time and charged towards the sky in the distance. Su Ming did not notice the gazes that were trained on him when he was flying in the sky. That was why it was good that he no longer had to walk. As for the three boys and girls, they were lifted up by Su Ming and Nangong Hen with their respective divine abilities and followed behind them. As the five of them charged forward, Su Ming spread his divine sense outwards and observed his surroundings cautiously. Nangong Hen swiped his right hand at the center of his brows, and immediately a purple eye appeared. That eye blinked 7 times, and instantly wisps of ghosts spread out from Nangong Hen's body and swam around him, turning into a vortex that covered an area of several tens of thousands of feet. Nangong Hen was clearly a spirit medium. The three boys and girls following behind Su Ming and Nangong Hen were silent. The boy who had lost his right arm had a determined look on his face, but he would occasionally frown, as if he was in pain. As for Ahu, he was looking at Su Ming's back with a pensive look on his face. As for Lan Lan, when she saw Nangong Hen, whom she had thought was incredibly powerful, being so polite to Su Ming, she was slightly uncertain, but she also believed that luck was the main reason why Su Ming had been able to bring them out of the forest. The group charged forward in the sky for several days. Since they had to bring 3 children with them, they did not travel too quickly. On this day, as they were flying, a gigantic ship suddenly broke through the clouds and charged towards them from another direction. There were 8 people on the ship. Some of them were sitting cross-legged, some were standing at the edge and looking into the distance, and some were talking to each other. There was a woman in the corner of the ship. She had an ordinary appearance and did not look anything special. Only her eyes were calm and clear. She was dressed in white, and she was frowning at that moment. No one knew what she was thinking about. She swept her gaze across the area casually, and when she saw Su Ming, her eyes widened, but they soon turned into hesitation and anguish appeared on her face. He might be in the land of the shamans, but it's impossible for him to have the chance to come here. Su Ming, just where are you? The woman sighed softly and fell into silence. To be continued. If you like this work, please come a Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 458. The ship traveled incredibly quickly. It broke through the clouds and created waves of ripples to the east of Su Ming and Nangong Hen, and as if the sky was an ocean, it charged past them. The ship was incredibly luxurious and shone with a colorful light. The ripples coming from within made Lan Lan and Ahu widen their eyes in envy. As for the boy with the withered right arm, he lifted his head and cast a glance at the ship. His expression was aloof and did not change much. Nangong Hen watched the ship leave into the distance and smiled at Su Ming. The sky-decked ship of Divine Pedestal Tribe. As one of the biggest tribes in the Shaman tribe, this ship is famous. It's said that if it runs at full speed, it's as fast as a ladder shaman who has reached the peak of the Shaman tribe. The defenses on it are also incredibly strong. It's the best tool for traveling to dangerous places. Su Ming fell into deep thought. When he scanned the ship with his divine sense just now, he had felt a repelling force outside the ship, That was why he did not force his way in. However, when he swept his gaze past the people standing on the ship, his gaze landed on a woman in white, and he found her rather familiar. "Brother Amo, are you interested in the Skydeck ship?" Nan Gong Hin asked with a smile when he saw Su Ming looking in the direction where Divine Pedestal Tribe left. "Even if I'm interested in the Skydeck ship, I can only be envious of it." Su Ming shook his head. A glint appeared in Nan Gong Hin's eyes, and as he moved forward with Su Ming, he said in a low voice, "Brother Amo, you don't have to belittle yourself. If you really want the Skydeck ship from Divine Pedestal Tribe, it's not impossible, oh? Brother Nan Gong, please tell me." Su Ming looked at Nan Gong Hin. "From what I know, Divine Pedestal Tribe will come every time the world of 9 is opened. Besides helping the tribe members obtain soul catchers, their main goal is the treasure gambling event. Brother Amo, don't tell me that you didn't come here for this event." Nan Gong Hin smiled and cast Su Ming a glance. "What does this have to do with the Skydeck ship?" Su Ming asked calmly without batting an eyelid. "Brother Amo, you don't know about this. As long as you have enough luck during treasure gambling and win a certain herb that the spiritual pedestal tribe needs, then they will definitely come to you to exchange for it. And at that time, you can ask for the Skydeck ship." Nan Gong Hin laughed. "This is—" Su Ming laughed wryly and shook his head. He did not continue speaking. His current expression could express many different meanings, and everything would depend on what the person who saw his expression thought. "Is Brother Mo worried about your luck? This is truly difficult to predict. I once saw a medial shaman grow a 9 abyss flower. Even though it's just a broken leaf and isn't complete, it was still bought by a member of a big tribe at a sky-high price. Not only is this item very useful to the berserkers, it's also very useful to the ladder shamans of the shaman tribe." As Nan Gong Hin spoke, his face was filled with envy. 9 abyss flower. Su Ming's eyes narrowed. "That's right. Why don't I have that kind of luck? That crystal doesn't look like anything special. No matter how I look at it, it doesn't look like something that can contain a 9 abyss flower. Luck, this is luck." Nan Gong Hin laughed wryly. Su Ming remained silent for a moment before he suddenly said, "But the person who got the 9 abyss flower must have ended up in a terrible state." "That's true, but he ended up like that because he was too greedy and made a few mistakes. Either he left immediately, or he didn't. He used most of his 9 abyss flower to exchange for something and went to the god of Shaman's temple in the city to rent the spirit of 9 yin. With the spirit of 9 yin's protection, as long as he doesn't go within 1 million lease, he'll be safe. After all, the world of 9 yin is a strange place. Over the years, there's only been 1 yin shaman keeping watch over this place. If 2 yin shamans appear, then within a few days, drastic changes will immediately happen around the place, and it might even affect the entire shaman city. I heard that this has always been accurate. That's why the god of Shaman's temple will never allow a second yin shaman to come here. They can only take turns to keep watch over this place in the name of searching for treasures. Unless all the yin shamans and ladder shamans in the shaman tribe come here to forcefully suppress the drastic changes in the area, just like they did when they opened up this place in the past. But we're in a time of war now, so that's impossible. As for the berserkers, even if they really come here, they'll at most be in the initial stage of the berserker soul realm. Once they reach the middle stage, they won't be able to avoid being detected by the god of Shaman's temple's relocation." Nan Gong Hin seemed to have a great understanding of this place, and spoke to Su Ming with a smile. Su Ming's expression remained the same. Once he nodded, his expression suddenly changed, and he looked towards Nan Gong Hin. Nan Gong Hin was momentarily stunned. There was something off about Su Ming's expression at that moment, and it made him puzzled. "Brother Nan Gong, there was originally no danger in the forest, but the change now. Can this be considered as the drastic change you spoke of?" Su Ming asked languidly. Nan Gong Hin's expression changed drastically. His expression kept changing, and after some time, he laughed wryly. "It doesn't matter whether it is or not. This isn't something we can control. If that's the case, then we'll have to be even more careful this time. Oh well, once we reach Shaman City, I'll immediately rent a spirit of 9 yin. That way, I'll have a higher chance of protecting my life. Once I join the treasure gambling event and activate the power of spirit mediums for the boy behind me, I'll immediately leave. Brother Mo, we might have just met, but we hit it off. I'd advise you not to be stingy with your money and rent a spirit of 9 as well. After all, while these spirits of 9 might not be able to leave the world of 9, they can bring out the power equivalent to a ladder shaman. They're also the natives of this place, and they've made an eternal covenant with the god of shamans' temple many years ago, Nangonghen said sincerely to Su Ming. Su Ming smiled and nodded. The group of people charged forward in the sky, and several more days passed by. On this day, most of the clouds in the sky had dissipated, and they could vaguely see the sky. There was no end to the area, and not a single soul could be seen. As the 5 of them moved forward, Su Ming's footsteps suddenly came to a halt. His face was stern, and once he stopped, he spread his divine sense outwards to investigate the area carefully. By his side, Nangonghen also stopped and quickly spread out the wandering souls around him to search an even larger area. However, after a moment, he did not find any signs of danger in the area. He could not help but look at Su Ming with puzzlement in his eyes. Su Ming's eyes sparkled as he stared at the empty space before him. When his divine sense had covered that area previously, some of it had disappeared, as if it had been devoured by some strange creature. It was precisely because of this that he suddenly stopped moving. At that moment, once Su Ming swept his divine sense through the area where it had disappeared, the feeling of his divine sense disappearing appeared once again. This time, the amount of his divine sense that had been devoured was greater than before. Yet strangely, Nangonghen's wandering souls did not encounter any sort of abnormality in that area. Su Ming saw these wandering souls swimming around in that area, and there was not a single sign of them being devoured. Su Ming's pupil shrank, and he frowned. He retrieved his divine sense, and no longer covered that strange space. Brother Mo, what's wrong? Nangonghen was slightly puzzled and looked at Su Ming. Something's wrong over there. Su Ming did not act humble like he did when he spoke to Nangonghen previously. Instead, he spoke directly. When he heard Su Ming's words, Nangonghen became even more wary. A dark glint appeared in his eyes, and immediately the wandering souls around him let out shrill screams and surged towards the space Su Ming was looking at. No matter how he looked at it, that space was the same as the sky around him. There was nothing strange about it. Even if Nangonghen's large number of wandering souls gathered there and continued moving around, there was nothing different about it. There's nothing here. Nangonghen was puzzled. If it was not because Su Ming's actions in the forest had left a deep impression on him, and he had not seen Su Ming and the other 2 completely unharmed, he would have definitely thought that Su Ming was just putting on a show. The boy with the withered right arm among the 3 boys and girls behind them still had an aloof expression on his face. No one knew what he was thinking. Ahu was very nervous as he stared at that area. He completely believed in Su Ming's words without a hint of doubt. However, Lon Lon was frowning and grumbling in her heart. He's just pretending to be mysterious. There's nothing there, or else how could Sir Nangong not have discovered anything? Brother Mo, Nangonghen had the wandering souls circle a few more times in that space. Once he was certain that there was nothing different about that place, he looked towards Su Ming. Brother Nangong, if you want to go there, I won't stop you, but I advise you not to. I'll go around it. As Su Ming spoke, he turned around and waved his arm. Immediately, he brought along the still mumbling Lon Lon and the nervous Ahu to fly in another direction. By the looks of it, he really wanted to go around that area. Nangonghen hesitated for a moment. He stared at the space that looked normal and suddenly lifted his right hand. With a flip of his palm, a ray of black light flew out from his sleeve. That black light flashed before him and turned into a black python that was 100 feet big. That python hissed, and a cold look appeared in its eyes as it looked at Nangonghen. When Nangonghen pointed at it, the black python let out a hiss and flew towards the space that Su Ming had avoided. In an instant, Nangonghen's pupils shrank as he stared at the black python. At the same time, shock appeared in his eyes. The boy with the withered right arm behind him also widened his eyes, and for the first time, a change appeared on his face. Once the black python entered that area, it suddenly let out a shrill scream of pain, and a large part of its body disappeared in a thin air. It was as if there was an invisible mouth that had devoured most of the black python's body in one gulp. Nangonghen's skin crawled. He could already imagine that if he had rushed in recklessly, it would have been difficult for him to escape from that sudden danger. As fear lingered in his heart, he looked at Su Ming, who was flying in another direction. Wariness appeared in his eyes, and he quickly flew towards him. This scene also fell into Lan Lan's eyes. Her eyes bulged out, and with a dumbfounded expression, she looked at Su Ming's back. At that instant, she suddenly had a feeling that it was not luck that allowed them to walk out of the forest safely. Ahu's eyes shone brightly, and when he looked at Su Ming, his gaze was filled with respect. I beg for monthly votes. I beg for recommendation votes. To be continued. If you like this work, please come Chidian. Come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. He knew that perhaps there were other people who had a way to come to Shaman City, but with his level of cultivation, if he did not have Su Ming's guidance, it would be difficult for him to protect the boy behind him. In fact, he might even lose his life. However, the young man and woman from the White Bull tribe were completely unscathed. All of this was because of Mo Su. A month later, Su Ming and the others arrived at the center of the Shaman tribe's territory, where Shaman City was located. Flying was forbidden within 100 lis of Shaman City. Su Ming and Nangonghen descended from midair and landed on the ground. Shaman City was not big, but it was built to be incredibly majestic. It was square in shape, and there were gigantic walls of 100 feet around it. The walls were entirely crimson red, as if they were dyed in blood. The crimson walls would occasionally let out a red light, forming an intimidating presence that would make all those who saw it feel their hearts tremble. There was only one gate to Shaman City, and all entrances and exits were from there. There were quite a number of unique buildings within the city that looked as if they had risen from the ground from 100 lis away. It was especially so for a stone pillar that towered into the clouds at the center of the city. It exuded an ancient air, and at the same time, there was a gigantic head placed at the top of the stone pillar. That head was 1,000 feet big, and no one knew how it was preserved. Only a small part of it had rotted away, but its face could still be seen clearly. The skull was hollow, and it was placed on the stone pillar, turning it into the most eye-catching building and symbol in Shaman City. It was a gigantic head covered in branches. It looked like a person, but it looked like a piece of dead wood. That head was entirely brown, and its facial features were distinct. At first glance, it looked like a person, but if anyone took a closer look, they would find that it was clearly a gigantic piece of wood. The creature's countless branches were like tentacles that hung down from the gigantic head. The longest of them was nearly 1,000 feet long, and their thicknesses and lengths varied. They were held up by the stone pillar, and from the distance, the stone pillar looked like a gigantic long spear that lifted the head high into the air. We're finally here in Shaman City. Brother Mo, I can't express my gratitude to you with words on the way here. Nangonghen looked at Shaman City and let out a long sigh. He wrapped his fist in his palm towards Su Ming with gratitude on his face. Brother Nangong, you don't have to thank me. I'm also coming to Shaman City. If we travel together, we can take care of each other. Besides, you're also going to join the treasure gambling event. I've heard a lot about it when I was outside, but I didn't manage to join it in the past due to some matters. Now that I'm here, no matter what, I must go and take a look. I'll need you to introduce me, Su Ming said with a smile. That's easy. I've joined the treasure gambling event several times. Brother Mo, since you're here, you must indeed go and take a look. Perhaps if you're lucky, you might even get a priceless treasure. But Brother Mo, before you go, you must first rent a spirit of 9 yin. After going through all that had happened on the way here, Nan Gonghen had developed a deeper desire to become friends with Su Ming. Once he heard Su Ming's words, he immediately said, "How about this, brother and Mo? If you don't mind, why don't we stay in an inn in Shaman City? If that's the case, it'll be much easier for us to contact each other." Nan Gonghen fell into a moment of pensive silence before he extended an invitation to Su Ming. Su Ming thought about it for a moment, then smiled and nodded in thanks. Nan Gonghen laughed heartily and walked out with Su Ming. With the three teenagers behind him, they walked quickly towards Shaman City. Before long, the group arrived outside Shaman City. At that moment, there were already quite a number of people waiting to enter the city, and they had formed a long queue. Most of those queues were made up of teenagers, and almost all of them had a medial shaman acting as their protector. It did not matter whether it was the teenagers or the medial shamans. Most of them were injured. Many of them had pale faces, as if they were badly injured. The queue waiting to enter the city was very long, but the checks before them were incredibly strict. There were a dozen-something medial shamans dressed in the same attire, and they would usually be checked carefully outside the city gate before they would charge some fees to let them in. There were quite a number of people waiting in the long queue that might look impatient, but once they saw the medial shamans dressed in the same attire, they swallowed their impatience. However, there would occasionally be some people who did not need to queue up once they arrived. They would walk straight to the gate, and after a simple check, they would be able to enter the city. These people were all from big tribes, and there were even some who had close ties with the god of Shaman's temple. "There's so many people here. Won't we have to wait until tomorrow to enter the city?" When they arrived outside the city gate, Lon Lon looked at the long queue and sighed. However, she also noticed that most of the teenagers who were like her in the queue had listless expressions on their faces. Clearly, they had gone through a lot of trouble on their way here. There were also quite a number of them who had grief on their faces, a telling sign that their companions had died on the way here. When she remembered how she had managed to get through the daunting journey, Lon Lon could not help but look at Su Ming. Su Ming's expression was calm as he swept his gaze across the crowd. He did not mind waiting until tomorrow. This was not a problem for him. "We don't have to wait. We could just go in." Once they arrived at Shaman City, Nan Gonghen's spirits lifted. Once he heard Lon Lan's words, he had the intention to let Su Ming know just how many connections he had. After all, to people with this level of cultivation, making friends was not just because they got along well with each other, it was also because of their mutual value. Su Ming's nonchalant attitude during the journey was an incredibly valuable thing in Nan Gonghen's eyes. That was why he needed to befriend him. However, he felt that his value had yet to be shown. As he spoke with a smile, he led the crowd forward. A faint smile appeared at the corners of Su Ming's lips. He could somewhat tell what Nan Gonghen was thinking. When he saw how confident he was, he believed that he definitely had a way, and if there was a way for him to not have to wait here, then Su Ming would naturally not choose to wait here until tomorrow. Lon Lon and the two teenagers followed behind Nan Gonghen. This group of 5 did not line up and charged straight towards the city gate, which immediately attracted a lot of gazes from the crowd. When they looked over, there were quite a number of medial shamans who were protecting the children. When they saw Nan Gonghen, surprise immediately appeared on their faces. Some of them even wrapped their fists in their palms and smiled as they greeted him. "So it's Brother Nan Gong. Which tribe are you protecting this time?" "Brother Nan Gong, it's been many years since we last met. How have you been?" Brother Nan Gong, when we get to the city, we're going to drink until we're drunk." There was a smile on Nan Gonghen's face. As he walked forward, he wrapped his fist in his palm to return the greeting. He did not show any signs of confusion because there were too many people greeting him. Everything was done in an orderly manner. It was clear that he was used to this sort of behavior. When Nan Gonghen arrived outside the city gate, the dozen-something medial shamans who were all dressed in the same uniform smiled. They did not bother to interrogate Su Ming and the others, but instead opened up a path for them. Su Ming was surprised by Nan Gonghen's connections. There was still a smile on Nan Gonghen's face. He greeted the medial shamans who were guarding the place, then led Su Ming and the others into the city. "Brother Nan Gong, you have a good eye for people. I'm impressed but I don't think it's because you're familiar with the guards of the god of Shaman's temple, right? Su Ming asked with a smile as they walked through the city gate. I've embarrassed myself in front of you, Brother Imo. I like making friends, and my father has quite a lot of friends as well. I grew up in the god of Shaman's temple since I was young. That's why I've embarrassed myself, Nin Gonghen said with a smile. Su Ming smiled. He was just about to speak when his smile suddenly froze and his pupils shrank. He saw a woman walking towards him from the city through the tunnel. To be continued. If you like this work, please come Chidian. Come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 460. 2 chapters in a row, 11 chapters in 3 days. It's not a lot, but to me it's quite a lot. The monthly votes are less than 4,200, but I know that everyone has done their best. I've seen the votes these few days. Although it's not a lot, every vote is earned through everyone's hard work. Thank you. The money for this monthly vote might be your living expenses. The money for this monthly vote might be your rent. How can I not be satisfied and grateful? I have no reason not to update just because I don't have the votes. I can't bear to. I can't. Even if I know that once I get used to it, the monthly votes can't be exchanged. Even if I know that, I still can't go to sleep as if it's natural. I feel like I'm a little silly. Hee, so be it. This month, up until now, I've updated 55 chapters. Among them, there are 2 supplementary chapters. I remember all these. Even if the monthly votes are getting further and further away, the promised 80 chapters will definitely not be less. There's still 1 supplementary chapter. Let's not think too much about the monthly votes. If you have them, just give them to me. Here's the recommendation ticket. Can I be satisfied? Also, 12 chapters. I can imagine. Because there are only 11 chapters, many people are doubting it. I promise 12 chapters. No matter what, since it's a promise, I will definitely keep it. I'm writing now. I will finish it. After I finish writing and publish, I will go to rest. To be continued. If you like this work, please come Chidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 461. It was an extremely beautiful purple-haired woman who exuded a gloomy and cold aura. She looked to be about 26 or 27 years old. She was tall and wore purple clothes. A white whip was tied around her waist, causing her waist to give off a breathtaking impression of being sunken in and protruding exaggeratedly, wrapping around her buttocks and slender legs. Her long hair danced in the air as she walked. Her eyes were cold, and her petite face was aloof. It would not be an exaggeration to say that she was as cold as ice. The woman's beauty and her aloof demeanor immediately gave off a unique air of coldness. Su Ming laughed wryly in his heart. He could not see anything off about the masked face, but he knew this woman. More accurately speaking, he had seen this woman naked before. This woman was the woman from the god of Shaman's temple whom progenitor Hong Luo had met when he was controlling Su Ming's body. In the end, he did not have enough qi. That was why he did not use the art of dragon subject in Luoyin on her. Hong Luo, oh Hong Luo, you said your name was Su Ming at that time. Su Ming laughed even more wryly in his heart. He felt a huge headache coming on. When he faced this woman, he had an indescribable feeling of being wronged in his heart. When he had woken up, he had seen the scenes of Hong Luo controlling his body. In his memories, he had a feeling that he was Hong Luo. Under that feeling, he could clearly remember the resentful gaze this woman had when she had looked at him. If she knows that I'm... Su Ming forced down the anguish in his heart and kept his expression calm as he watched the woman walk towards him. Nan Gonghen was originally smiling by his side, but when he saw the woman, his smile instantly froze, just like Su Ming's, and was replaced with a wry smile. Nan Gonghen let out a fake cough and quickly asked the aloof woman, "Little sister, are you going out? So you're not dead." The woman who was as cold as ice walked 10 feet away from Nan Gonghen and Su Ming and spoke coldly. Her voice was very pleasant to the ears, even without the chill in it. Nan Gonghen let out a few fake coughs once again, choking on the woman's words. He shook his head with a wry smile. Little sister, why are you talking to me like this? Oh well, let me introduce you. I'm not interested, the woman said coldly. The woman said coldly. She did not even look at Su Ming and walked between the two of them. Nan Gonghen quickly opened up a path for her. Su Ming sighed and also avoided her. The woman walked past him and went out of the city gate. Who is this? Su Ming hesitated for a moment, but still decided to ask. He had to know the person's identity so that he could think of a way to avoid running into them in the future. She's my younger sister, Nan Gongshan. Ah, because she practiced some sort of cultivation method when she was young. That's why she became more and more aloof. That's not a big deal, but a year ago, when she was in isolation, an accident happened to her, causing her aura of Yin to become even stronger, and that's why she became like this. Nan Gonghen said with a wry smile. He walked out of the city gate with Su Ming and appeared in Shaman City. A wave of noise traveled into the air. The city was bustling with activity, and there were quite a number of shamans there. When they stood there, they would have a feeling that they had forgotten that they were in the world of Nine. When he heard Nan Gonghen mention the accident a year ago, Su Ming felt slightly guilty and sighed. He did not expect that the Nan Gonghen he met on the way here would be the woman's big brother. Nan Gonghen shook his head, and once he explained to Su Ming, he started speaking casually. I didn't expect her to be here as well. My sister was a little aloof just now. Brother Mo, speaking of that accident, have you heard of a powerful berserker who suddenly appeared in the land of the shamans a year ago? Su Ming laughed even more wryly in his heart. He cast Nan Gonghen a glance, and when he saw that this person was only speaking casually and did not seem to be referring to something, he shook his head. I've been in isolation for many years. I've heard some people talk about what happened a year ago, but I don't know much about it. Nan Gonghen sighed and brought Su Ming and the three teenagers down the streets of Shaman City. The streets were bustling with activity. There were all sorts of shops, and most of them sold the necessities of the shaman tribe. Aside from that, there were also some unique items in the world of Nine. Compared to the dangers outside, this place was very relaxed and looked very peaceful. Speaking of that powerful berserker who appeared a year ago, his power was so great that it even surpassed that of an shaman. When Nan Gonghen said these words, admiration and yearning appeared on his face. His power surpassed that of an shaman? I really don't know how he managed to do that. Once he appeared, he challenged a large number of powerful berserkers in the land of the shamans in just a few short days. Every single time he used a unique method to take away most of the power of those who lost to him. To many people, this is a heinous crime, but I don't think so. There was a hint of excitement in Nan Gonghen's voice. Clearly, when he talked about this person, his emotions were not calm. Su Ming blinked, but did not speak. I know that this person thinks that those so-called powerful berserkers don't deserve to have power. That's why he didn't take their lives, but took away most of their power. He's using silent words to tell those who lost to him that if they can surpass him one day, then they can come to him and take back that part of their power. I understand, I know. This is a great sentiment. This is the true quality of a powerful berserker. Those who lost must give up their power, and this is also a form of encouragement to them. I still think that this person is definitely a shaman, or else why would he show such tender affection to those so-called powerful berserkers and personally give them encouragement to make them train? Nan Gonghen said excitedly. When Su Ming heard this, he was stunned. Brother Imo, I'm telling the truth. I'm not the only one who feels this way. There are quite a number of those who lost who felt the same way. I've asked them about this before. Respect appeared in Nan Gonghen's eyes. What I respect the most is this powerful berserker. He didn't even give up on the ferocious beasts to encourage them. Just how great of a heart does he have to be able to do this? During those few days, there were plenty of ferocious beasts with great luck who ran into him and had their hearts enlightened. Perhaps a sacred beast would appear among them. Su Ming was completely speechless. He instinctively touched his nose, but when he touched his mask, he saw that the corners of his lips were curled up in a wry smile. When Lan Lan and Ahu heard Nan Gonghen's words, Their eyes lit up and their emotions surged. They looked extremely excited. Even the cold-looking young man with a withered right arm had a look of reverence and fanaticism on his face. Then just how strong is he? Lon Lon could not help but ask. How strong? Haha. Sir Zhongzhe of Autumn Sea Tribe was sealed in the sky by this person, and his body was shackled to the point where he couldn't move. The people of Autumn Sea Tribe were all sealed when he pushed them down to the ground, and they couldn't move a single inch. They could only watch him float down and land beside the sacred lady of Autumn Sea Tribe. He hugged her and brought her away into the distance. This is a great love. I'm very envious. Nan Gonghen let out a long sigh. Su Ming could not help but let out a few coughs. When he heard other people talking about this, he felt that it was a little strange because he knew that this was not the truth. When Lon Lon heard this, a sparkle appeared in her eyes. When Ahu saw Lon Lan's expression, he made a decision in his heart. A few days later, the sacred lady of Autumn Sea Tribe came back with his blood dragon, causing Autumn Sea Tribe to have another sacred dragon besides the sacred beast, the mackerel pike. Honestly, my little sister isn't that bad either. Why didn't he choose my little sister? Nan Gonghen shook his head and looked at Su Ming. He found that Su Ming's expression was a little strange at that moment. Brother Mo, what's wrong? It's nothing. I'm just really moved by some of this person's actions. Su Ming sighed. In truth, my little sister also ran into this powerful warrior, but it's a pity they are not fated to meet. It's also because of this encounter that my little sister started missing him and felt resentful. That's why she's so aloof. Nan Gonghen brought Su Ming and the others through a few streets, and as he walked, he sighed. Where is this powerful warrior now? What's his name? Ahu could not help but ask. He disappeared. I suspect that he felt that there was no longer anyone in the land of the shamans who was worthy of his encouragement. That's why he chose to leave. His name is Su Ming, red-haired Su Ming. When Nan Gonghen said Su Ming's name, excitement and admiration appeared on his face once again. Su Ming's feet came to a halt. He could only laugh wryly in his heart. He was originally prepared for this, but now that he heard it with his own ears, the feeling was still a little different. Su Ming let out a fake cough. Just as he was about to change the topic, Ahu asked another question from behind him. Red-haired? His hair is red? That's right. It doesn't matter whether it's the rumors or what I saw with my own eyes. He has long red hair, purple lips, and the mark of a peach at the center of his brows. Those are his greatest characteristics. If you have the chance to meet him, you must worship him because his greatness is not something that people can understand. But I do. I understand him. Nan Gonghen said softly. Red hair, pale face, purple lips, the mark of a peach. Lon Lon mumbled. She could vaguely remember seeing this face somewhere before. When she lifted her head and saw Su Ming looking at her, Lon Lan's expression changed drastically. She remembered that a year ago, this person had appeared in the sky above their tribe. A year later, this person was wearing a mask and standing before her. Since she was behind Nan Gonghen, he did not see the change in her expression. Su Ming's gaze also made Lon Lan's heart tremble, and she quickly lowered her head. Her heart was filled with nervousness and shock. Ahu's face was pale, but when he saw Su Ming's gaze, his expression immediately returned to normal, as if nothing had happened. He held Lon Lan's hand, but his back was drenched in cold sweat. Su Ming cast a flat glance at Lon Lon and Ahu before averting his gaze and looking at Nan Gonghen. You've seen it before. Monthly votes, recommendation votes. Chapter 462. I only saw his back. As Nan Gonghen spoke, he shook his head in regret. At that moment, the group had already arrived at a rather secluded corner of Shaman City. Right before them was a seemingly normal inn. We're here, Brother Mo. This is the place I stay every time I come here. It's very quiet here. Brother Mo, please rest for a while. We'll go rent the Spirits of Nine tomorrow morning. Nan Gonghen stepped into the inn, and an innkeeper immediately came up to him. After a simple conversation, he wrapped his fist in his palm towards Su Ming. The regret of only seeing the red-haired Su Ming's back was still lingering on his face, and he brought the boy with the withered right arm into his room. "Come with me," Su Ming said flatly, then turned around and went to his room under the innkeeper's guidance. Lan Lan's face was pale. Even though she had always been bold, she hesitated at that moment. However, Oh, who had always been timid and rather cowardly by her side, grabbed Lan Lan's hand. A determined look appeared on his face, and he nodded towards Lan Lan before dragging her along with him and following behind Su Ming. For the first time, Lan Lan allowed Ahu to pull her along. She bit her lip and slowly followed Su Ming into his room. There were not many people staying in the inn. Most of the rooms were empty, and each room had its own seal. Once a person stepped into the room, they would be able to activate it. When the door to the room was closed, Su Ming stood by the window and looked at the quiet street outside. He looked at the foggy sky. It was almost noon. He could vaguely hear the noises coming from the distance, but when those noises fell into his ears, it was as if they had been isolated by several layers and became much weaker. This was a pretty good place to stay. He could avoid any disturbances and stay in a place of relative peace. He spread his divine sense outwards and enveloped the room without a sound, causing no one to be able to detect anything that happened in the room as long as the ripples did not surpass the power of Su Ming's divine sense. As Su Ming spread his divine sense outwards, he also spread it into Nan Gonghen's room. With his divine sense and his observation, Nan Gonghen first returned to his room with a melancholic look on his face before he sat down and meditated. After a long while, when he did not do anything else, Su Ming left a hint of his divine sense behind to continue observing the place, then turned around and looked at Lan Lan and Ahu. The two youths had been waiting for a long time, but they did not dare to show the slightest bit of impatience. Lan Lan's face became paler, and Ahu held Lan Lan's hand even more tightly. When she met Su Ming's gaze, Lan Lan shuddered. "Say, Senior." At this moment, Ahu's behavior was completely different from how he usually acted. His expression was resolute as he pulled Lan Lan to his knees. "Senior, please cast a spell and erase our memories just now, lest we subconsciously reveal any clues. Not only will it bring trouble to Senior, but it will also bring disaster to us." Su Ming did not speak. Once he swept his gaze past the boy and girl, he closed his eyes and sank into his thoughts. This was an accident, but ever since Su Ming agreed to the Patriarch of White Bull Tribe's request, he had been prepared for this accident. After all, Hong Luo's actions in the past had been too flamboyant. His appearance and characteristics would inevitably be remembered by others. However, he didn't expect things to happen so quickly. Nan Gonghen had told him everything about his appearance when he was still a red-haired man. Fortunately, even though Nan Gonghen had only spoken casually previously, judging by his current behavior, he did not seem to be suspecting anything. A glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes, and he looked at the boy and girl once again. "If you know about this, there will be more harm than good. Not only will you bring trouble to yourselves, you will also bring destruction to your tribe." Su Ming did not lie. Once these two children revealed any clues, then White Bull Tribe would be unable to avoid disaster. "Senior." Ahu's face turned pale, and it was the same for Lan Lan by his side. Su Ming lifted his right hand swiftly, and with a swing of his arm, the boy and girl immediately fell unconscious. Su Ming's expression was calm. If he did not have the immortal's nascent soul and had not learned of a method to erase memories from Hong Luo's legacy, he would not have agreed to bring them to the world of Nining previously. He had been prepared for this since a long time ago, but he did not expect that he would have to use it now. 2 hours later, Lan Lan and Ahu walked out of Su Ming's room with bewilderment in their eyes. Once they returned to their own rooms, they gradually recovered after the time it takes for an incense stick to burn. There was no longer anything related to the red-haired Su Ming in their memories. Once Lan Lan regained her senses, she could not help but want to go out and look around Shaman City, especially since it was only noon and the sky was still bright. That was why she went to Ahu and invited the boy with the withered right arm to come with them. Once the three of them asked for permission from Su Ming and Nan Gong Hen, they left the inn. Time trickled by. When dusk was about to arrive, Su Ming opened his eyes and looked towards the door to his room. After a moment, someone knocked on his door, and along with it was Nan Gong Hen's hearty voice. "Brother Emo, dusk in the world of Nine Een is an incredibly beautiful sight, and it's even more so when the 9 moons appear. Why don't we drink while we watch it?" The reason why Nan Gong Hen had so many friends was largely due to his hearty way of talking and his personality of taking the initiative to ask people to drink with him. When Su Ming heard Nan Gong Hen's words, he smiled faintly and got up to walk to the door. When he pushed it open, he saw Nan Gong Hen standing outside with 2 pots of wine in his hands. All of Nan Gong Hen's actions and even everything that happened in the inn were covered by Su Ming's divine sense. Nan Gong Hen was not the one who brought out the 2 pots of wine. He had summoned the innkeeper and brought them over from the underground wine cellar. Su Ming had also scanned the innkeeper and the wine with his divine sense, but he did not find anything wrong with them. Besides, Nan Gong Hen had also drunk a pot of wine in his room, and as if he felt that it was tasteless to drink without anyone accompanying him, that was why he came to Su Ming. Su Ming knew all of this. With a smile on his face, he took the pot of wine and took a big swig from it. Nan Gong Hen's eyes lit up, and as he laughed heartily, he walked to the top floor of the inn with Su Ming. The top floor was a balcony in the attic. There were a few tables placed there, and there were not too many things blocking their view, causing the place to be ventilated. When they sat on the tables by the edge and looked into the distance, they could see the faint red hue of the sky. It was a very comfortable feeling. I like the world of Nine Een a lot. I come here practically every time. Nan Gong Hen drank and looked at the sky in the distance as he spoke with a sentimental tone. This place is indeed pretty good. It's hard to imagine that this is an ancient ruin. Su Ming's gaze fell on the fiery red sky in the sky, and he spoke calmly. Haha, when you look at the peace here and think about the dangers outside, especially the world of Nine Een that is 1 million leagues away, a place that even the ancestors of the shaman tribe have never explored, and here we are, drinking wine and watching the moon rise. This feeling is so damn comfortable. Nan Gong Hen laughed heartily and took a big swig from his mouth. Brother Mo, you know what my dream is. I want to go to a place no one has ever gone to 1 million leagues away. Over there, I want to look at the dusk in the sky and the moment the moon rises, and I want to drink wine there. Nan Gong Hen looked at the faint shadow of the moon that was gradually appearing in the red sky and spoke with a smile. Over there, I don't care about the war. I don't care about my father's hopes. I don't think about anything else. I only think about my dream. And over here, I'll wait for someone. Nan Gong Hen sighed softly. Oh. Su Ming took a sip of wine and looked at Nan Gong Hen. Brother Emo, you must be wondering why I come here every single time. Besides the fact that I really like this place, the more important reason why I come here every single time is because I made a promise with someone. I'm going to wait for her here. She went 1 million leagues away. We made a promise. I'm going to wait for her here and wait for her to come back. But many years have passed, and she still hasn't come back, Nan Gong Hen said bitterly after remaining silent for a moment. A promise. Su Ming lowered his head and looked at the wine in his hand. He picked it up and took a big swig from it. His gaze fell on the sky in the distance, where the first moon gradually appeared in the red sky. If you really can't forget her, then why don't you go 1 million leagues away to search for her? At that moment, an aloof voice came from the bottom of the tower. Su Ming focused his divine sense. His divine sense had only noticed someone approaching the tower the breath before that voice appeared. Several breaths later, an aloof woman walked up the stairs. She was Nan Gong Hen's younger sister, and she was also the person Su Ming did not want to see at that moment. The woman did not even look at Su Ming. Once she walked over, she sat down by the side, and when she took the wine pot from Nan Gong Hen's hands, waves of white freezing air immediately spread out from within. Clearly, the wine in the pot had instantly turned cold. She picked it up and took a big swig from it. Nan Gong Hen lifted his head and looked at the woman. After a long while, he said slowly, I'll go. I definitely will. Su Ming stood by the side and looked at the siblings. Just as he was about to find an excuse to leave, his expression suddenly changed, and a freezing glare immediately appeared in his eyes. He stood up and looked towards the distance in the city. "Brother Nangong, I have some matters to attend to. I'll be taking my leave now." As Su Ming spoke, the freezing glare in his eyes became even colder. With one move, he turned into a long arc and walked away from the balcony. Nangong Hen was momentarily stunned. When he lifted his head to look, for the first time ever, the aloof woman by his side cast her gaze on Su Ming's departing back. Suddenly, her pupils shrank. At that moment, there was a shop in a bustling street located in the north of Shaman City. Lanlan's face was filled with anger. By her side was Ahu, who looked slightly afraid. As for the boy with the withered right arm, his face was pale and his face was filled with anguish. Standing before them was a boy dressed in luxurious clothes with disdain on his face. There was a woman standing by his side. That woman had a graceful figure and no signs of age could be seen on her face. There was a calm look in her eyes. Behind the boy and the woman were three expressionless men. The ripples of power spreading out from their bodies showed that they were all medial shamans. Qidong was the one who saw this herb first, and he even paid for it. How could you be so unreasonable and forcefully snatch it? Lan said angrily. "Qidong, I didn't expect to run into you here. Look at your right arm. You need this herb to heal it, right? Don't worry, I'll have someone buy all these herbs in the city. If you beg me, I can give you some. If you kneel down and kowtow to me, I'll give you one. But now I'm in a bad mood. Chase them out," the boy said with a smile, and his final words were directed at the medial shaman behind him. "Bayer, don't make things difficult for others. It's impolite. Since he bought this herb first, just break their legs and throw them out, then give them to him," the woman said flatly and turned around to ignore them, said the young woman calmly. She turned and ignored him, looking at the other items in the shop. It seemed that such a small matter wouldn't attract too much attention to her. Since she had already given the order, there would naturally be people who would carry it out. Monthly votes. To be continued. If you like this work, please come to Chidian. Come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 463. When the boy called Bayer heard the woman's words, a hint of brutality appeared at the corners of his lips, and he cast a smug glance at the boy with the withered right arm. The boy who had come with Lan and the others with a shriveled right arm that looked as if he was just skin and bones looked even paler at that moment. "What right do you have to do this? We didn't even provoke you, and we've already paid for this herb. You're the ones who forcefully took it away. Your levels of cultivation are high, but aren't you ashamed of bullying us three kids like this?" Lan's face was filled with anger. She was also very afraid at that moment, but among the three of them, Qidong had been silent all along the way, like a block of wood. Ahu was also a coward in her eyes. When she spoke up in anger, Lan might have been terrified, but when she saw Qidong's pale face, she gritted her teeth. "Our protector is Mo Su, and his is Nangong Hen. If you hurt us, they'll definitely not let you off." When she saw one of the expressionless medial shamans walking out from beside the woman and heading towards Lan and the other two teenagers, Lan shouted loudly and protected Qidong and Ahu while retreating. Her face was already stark pale, but she still forced herself to stay strong. Nangong Hen. The woman had already turned around to look at the other items. When she heard Nangong Hen's name, she frowned slightly. For Nangong Hen's sake, just break one of their legs. As for this girl, she has a sharp tongue. Take out her tongue. Understood, madam. The medial shaman who walked towards the three boys was a thin, middle-aged man. At that moment, he turned his head around and bowed towards the woman. Once he spoke respectfully, he turned around and walked towards Lan without any expression on his face. Under the pressure of a medial shaman, Lan trembled. Ahu's eyes were filled with fear, and Qidong had his head lowered in anguish. The three of them could not leave this place at all. To the three children, this pressure was like the might of heaven itself. "Qi-bei, madam, this has nothing to do with them. We just came to Shaman City along the way. My matter has nothing to do with them. If you really want to punish them, then break my legs and one of my arms. I'll take their place." The boy with the withered right arm lifted his head at that moment, and with anguish on his face, he took a few steps forward. The young woman didn't pay any attention to the young man's words. She pretended not to hear him as she picked up a black wooden hairpin from the shop and lowered her head to look at it. The young man on the side glanced at Qi with a cold smile. The arrogance and disdain on his face were obvious. The middle-aged medial shaman who was walking towards Lon Lon and the other two did not stop for even a single moment. As he got closer, the cold presence spreading out from his body caused despair to appear in Lon Lon and the other two's eyes. Qi eyes were bloodshot, and he let out a loud roar. As he retreated, he used his body to knock Lon Lon and Ahu into the shop's front door. "Go! Ahu, take Lon Lon and run." Lon Lon hesitated for a moment. By her side, Ahu grabbed her hand and immediately rushed towards the door anxiously. Yet right at the instant he and Lon Lon arrived beside the door, a huge gust of wind appeared out of nowhere and swept up the two of them. Immediately, Lon Lon and Ahu shuddered and fell back against their will. It was as if they had crashed into a wall, and as they fell back, they coughed up a mouthful of blood. "Our guardian is Mo Su. He won't let you go." Lon Lon wiped away the blood and glared at the medial shaman. By her side, Ahu sucked in a deep breath. Even though his face was pale and his chest was aching, he still stood before Lon Lon with a determined look on his face that made him look like a mountain. Qi laughed brokenly. As he looked at Lon Lon and Ahu, a deeply apologetic look appeared on his face. He was filled with regret. He should not have come out. It was fine if he was injured, but it was not his intention to drag the others into this. The middle-aged medial shaman smiled coldly. There was not a single hint of his status as a high-grade shaman. In the face of these three children who could not even fight back, he attacked incredibly ruthlessly. Mo Su. I've never heard of a powerful medial shaman with this name. I'd like to see just how this person won't let me go. The middle-aged medial shaman took a step forward and leapt past Qi. With a swing of his arm, he flung Ahu away, and Ahu immediately tumbled to the side, causing the middle-aged medial shaman to arrive beside Lon Lon, whose face was pale and filled with despair. As he laughed coldly, the middle-aged medial shaman lifted his right hand and pointed at Lon Lan's right leg. As long as his finger landed, the girl's right leg would immediately shatter, and from then on, she would become a cripple. Ahu let out a shrill roar as if he had gone mad and was about to rush forward. Qi felt a sharp stab of pain in his heart. Without a hint of hesitation, he also rushed forward. However, these two children were not even fledgling shamans, so there was no way they could be faster than the middle-aged medial shaman. Even if they pounced on him, it would be useless. The middle-aged medial shaman's right hand was as quick as lightning, as if there was no other speed that could compare to his right hand at that moment. It charged straight towards the despairing Lon Lan's right leg. However, that was just what it seemed to be. It was not as if there was truly no one who could stop his right hand. Right at the instant the middle-aged medial shaman's right index finger was only 3 inches away from Lon Lan's right leg, a voice filled with a chilling tone traveled forth from the sky outside the shop. "How dare you?" That voice echoed in the air. At first glance, it seemed to be coming from the distance, but if one listened carefully, it would sound as if it was right by their ears. At the same time the middle-aged medial shaman heard that voice, his index finger was suddenly seized by a right hand that appeared out of nowhere beside him. It was a cold hand with a black sleeve. As that hand appeared, a man dressed in black with a mask on his face appeared beside the middle-aged medial shaman. "Didn't you want to see how I won't let you go? I'll show you." The masked man was naturally Su Ming. Only an instant had passed from the moment he spoke to the moment he appeared. At that moment, when he held the middle-aged medial shaman's index finger, the medial shaman's expression immediately changed drastically. Yet right at the instant his expression changed, Su Ming squeezed the man's finger with his right hand. With that one squeeze, a cracking sound rang out, and the medial shaman let out a muffled groan. His face instantly turned pale, and his right index finger was crushed by Su Ming. His heart trembled, and he instinctively wanted to retreat, but before he could take 2 steps back, blood flowed out of the gaps between Su Ming's fingers. A profound glare shone in Su Ming's eyes under the mask. He lifted his right hand and swung his arm at the medial shaman before him. With that one swing, a gust of wind that was several times stronger than the one that appeared when he was fighting against Lon Lon and Ahu appeared out of nowhere and turned into a vortex. As it spun around, green light shone at the center of Su Ming's brows. The small virescent sword let out a piercing screech and pierced through the vortex. As blood spilled everywhere, the green light returned with a flash. The vortex of wind disappeared, and the middle-aged medial shaman widened his eyes where he stood. Disbelief lingered in his eyes. There was a bloody gash at the center of his brows that pierced through his entire head. He fell to the ground, and after twitching a few times, he breathed his last and died. All of this happened within the span of a few breaths from the moment Su Ming appeared to the moment the middle-aged medial shaman died. It happened so quickly that it was unbelievable, so quickly that it was difficult for anyone to react to it. The woman who was holding the black wooden hairpin and had her head lowered to look at it turned her head around swiftly. Her gaze was like lightning as it fell on Su Ming's body, and her expression was incredibly grave. The boy's face instantly turned pale. To him, the span of a few breaths had only lasted for an instant, but what happened before and after that instant was as if the world had been turned upside down. It made his mind roar and his mind turned blank as he stood there, dumbfounded. The other 2 medial shamans by the woman's side were originally expressionless, but at that moment, their expressions changed drastically. When they looked at Su Ming, their gazes were instantly filled with shock. They knew that they would definitely not be able to kill a shaman of the same level as them in such a clean manner. It was as if the middle-aged medial shaman was so weak that he could not even withstand a single blow before this person. Once Lon Lon saw Su Ming, she was also stunned. This was the first time she saw Su Ming attack, but with just one attack, he had made the person she had previously fallen into despair die in an instant. This sort of power and this sort of murderous aura caused all the doubts Lon Lon had towards Su Ming to completely disappear at that moment. At the same time, once she saw Su Ming, she was like a child who had run into an adult after being bullied. She felt wronged and started relying on him. Senior, Lon Lan's eyes turned red, and there was a hint of sobbing in her voice. Senior. Ahu's face was filled with excitement as he wrapped his fist in his palm and bowed deeply towards Su Ming. Even Qi Dong rushed to Su Ming's side in excitement. As if he did not know how to express his feelings, he simply knelt down before Su Ming and kowtowed a few times. Sir, how should I address you? This might be a misunderstanding. I'm a member of Eastern Goosefoot Tribe. Eastern Goosefoot Tribe has always loved getting to know the powerful shamans from other tribes. Sir, do you know anyone in Eastern Goosefoot Tribe? The woman's expression was grave. She stared at Su Ming for a long while before a gentle smile suddenly appeared on her face. She might not be young, but she still retained her charm. When she smiled, it gave off a feeling that all sorts of beauties were born. There was not a hint of pretense in her charm. Instead, it gave people a feeling that it was natural. This was something that was completely different from Madame G's. They were 2 completely different things. It started because my child took a fancy to this herb and got into some conflict with these 3 teenagers. I don't care who's right or wrong. You've already punished my guards. This is just a misunderstanding. How about we let this matter rest? The woman said gently as she twirled her hair. It's not like that. They're the ones who went overboard. We already paid for the herb, but they want to break our legs. Lon Lon immediately spoke up from the side. Enough. Su Ming's gaze was calm as he cut off Lon Lan's words. Lon Lon immediately stopped talking obediently. I don't care who's right or wrong. If they hurt my people, then saying it's a misunderstanding is not enough. Are you going to break all your legs, or do you want me to do it for you? Su Ming asked coldly. This was the 9th Summit's principle, and it was also Su Ming's principle. If you still have recommendation tickets, then give them to Ear Root. To be continued. If you like this work, please come Achidian. Come to vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 464. Once she heard Su Ming's aloof words, a murderous glint appeared in the woman's eyes. She had already told him her tribe and had even lowered her stance. She did not want to provoke a powerful shaman who could be considered as a powerful shaman for no reason. After all, there are not many people from Eastern Goosefoot tribe who came to Shaman City. In fact, she did not think that what happened today was too much. She was already being merciful to the boy called Qi Dong. As for the other two teenagers, she had only asked for one of their legs to be broken. She did not want to take their lives. Right then, he had already killed one of them, and she had already tolerated it. But judging by his words, he was being completely unreasonable and going overboard. "Sir, aren't you being too conceited?" the woman said coldly, but right when she finished speaking, Su Ming shook his head and started walking towards them. "Kill him." Killing intent shone brightly on the woman's face. To her, since this person did not know what was good for him, then she should just leave his head here. "I'll hit you, but you can't fight back." When Su Ming walked over, the two medial shamans beside the woman swiftly closed in on him. One of them was a battle shaman, and the other was a spirit medium. At that moment, the spirit medium bit the tip of his tongue and coughed out a mouthful of blood. That blood immediately turned into a large amount of vengeful spirits that pounced on Su Ming while letting out shrill screams. At the same time, the battle shaman took a huge step forward with an incredibly grim expression on his face. A violent gust of wind stirred up in his body, and golden light shone on his body, making him look as if he had donned golden armor. With an incredibly mighty posture, he hurled his fist towards Su Ming. That punch immediately caused the sound of air being sliced to ring out in the area. Waves of suction force also spread out from that punch, causing the air to distort. Clearly, the battle shaman's punch was not an ordinary punch. Yet the instant that punch landed, Su Ming looked as if he did not even bother dodging it, and simply allowed it to land on his body. Yet right at that moment, Su Ming's body swayed slightly, and the battle shaman's punch missed. At the same time, Su Ming appeared to the battle shaman's right. "If you retaliate, I'll deal a heavy blow," Su Ming said calmly. He formed a seal with his right hand, and the instant the power of his nascent soul bloomed from his body, the seals on his right hand changed several times in that instant before he pressed his palm against the medial shaman's ribs. The man started trembling furiously, and his face turned pale. At the same time, Su Ming retracted the power of his nascent soul. The berserker's berserker body, refinement, berserker's berserker body, refinement, berserker body, refinement, berserker erupted from his right hand and turned it into a fist before he hurled it forward. The battle shaman coughed up blood and let out a muffled groan as he retreated to the side, unable to stop Su Ming in the slightest. As he moved back, his ribs turned black, and a strange circular mark appeared there. That mark seemed to be able to absorb the man's flesh and blood, causing the man's body to rapidly wither away as he retreated. Once his flesh and blood were absorbed by the black circular mark, a large part of his body started rotting away. The appearance of the mark might have seemed simple, but in truth, it was something Su Ming had gained from studying the curse during the past few days he isolated himself. The power of his nascent soul had cut off the circulation of the man's veins, and the berserker body refinement punch had temporarily stopped the man's flesh and blood from recovering. Eventually, the power of the curse that came from Su Ming's hand could explode and absorb everything in the man's body to grow, even if he had not circulated his cultivation base and had not recovered his flesh and blood. Waves of black mist spread out from the circular mark, causing the man to let out shrill screams of pain. His face was filled with terror and shock, and he wanted to stop the mark under his ribs from rotting away, but it was difficult for him to do so. He could only let out cries of pain that made people's hearts tremble. "If you deal a heavy blow, then I'll kill you." Su Ming no longer bothered himself with the man and walked towards the medial spirit medium. The vengeful souls that had spread out from the spirit medium were circling around Su Ming's body. But right at the instant they were about to pounce on him, a bell chime came from within him. That bell chime reverberated in the air, and the instant it traveled out, the vengeful souls instantly let out pained screams and retreated hastily, as if there was something within Su Ming's body that terrified them. But before they could retreat too far away, they screamed, and as if a great suction force had appeared on Su Ming's body, the vengeful souls were sucked towards him. In an instant, they crawled into his pores and disappeared without a trace. Su Ming's expression remained the same. Not a single hint of change could be detected on his face, as if he had long since known that this would happen. This was the power Su Ming had obtained after the sixth head of Han Mountain Bell awakened. He needed to absorb enough souls before he could awaken the seventh head. Once Hong Luo passed away and Su Ming regained his consciousness, he also checked Han Mountain Bell. The three heads that had been awakened by Hong Luo's lucidity had also fallen asleep once again when he died. However, Su Ming could sense that even though the three heads had fallen asleep once again, it was much easier for them to wake up compared to before. Absorb 100 million vengeful souls and obtain the power of the sixth head of Han Mountain Bell, 100 million souls devouring the heavens. When the spirit medium saw Su Ming forcefully absorbing the vengeful souls into his body and even felt his connection with them being instantly cut off, his face turned stark pale. He suddenly lifted his right hand and struck his forehead. Immediately, veins popped up on his forehead. This scene caused the spirit medium to look incredibly ferocious. He did not look like a human, but more like a malicious spirit. He let out a piercing howl, and a large amount of black mist seeped out of his entire body. "If you kill me, then I will have your family die with you." Su Ming's words were spoken slowly, and as he spoke, he had already arrived before the spirit medium. The spirit medium shuddered. Su Ming's previous words and his determination to kill immediately appeared in his head. Those words were spoken calmly, but the meaning behind them was a domineering presence that shot straight into the clouds. That domineering presence made it so that no one could refuse it. In fact, they could not even fight back, or else they would only end up dead. His first companion's corpse was still lying on the ground, and his second companion was still wailing in pain. Most of his body had already rotted away. Black smoke surrounded the spirit medium's entire body, and veins popped up on his face. He lifted his right hand and swiftly cut down on his right leg. Immediately, cracking sounds came from his right leg, and it was cut off. When blood gushed out, it was swiftly sealed up by the black smoke. His face was drained of blood. He leaned against the wall by his side and looked at Su Ming respectfully. Su Ming's gaze lingered on the spirit medium for a moment before he moved it away and looked at the woman whose eyes were now filled with terror. "I am the daughter of the tribe leader of Eastern Goosefoot Tribe. Eastern Goosefoot Tribe is a tribe that is second only to the big tribes. My latter shaman uncle is among the tribe members who came to Shaman City this time. If you dare hurt us, Eastern Goosefoot Tribe will definitely not forgive you. You're dead meat." The woman screamed shrilly. The instant Su Ming looked towards her and said those words, a strong light immediately shone in her right hand and turned into a screen of light that protected her and the terrified boy within it. At the same time, the instant the screen of light appeared, an explosive force spread out from the screen of light. The expression of the spirit medium who had lost his right leg changed. A black aura surrounded his body, and he quickly flew away, speeding away. Almost the instant he left, a violent boom came from the shop where Su Ming was. That boom spread through most of Shaman City, causing most of the people in Shaman City to immediately hear it. The shop was torn to pieces and tumbled backwards layer by layer before it exploded and turned into an endless amount of shards that tumbled outwards, causing a hole to look as if it had appeared on the street. It was a terrifying sight to behold. Dust flew into the air, and in the indistinct dust, the people could see that the woman and the boy were protected by the screen of light. They were completely unharmed. Su Ming stood before them with a calm expression on his face. There were not many changes to his expression. As for Lon Lon and the other two behind him, they were surrounded by a layer of dark light. They were not injured when the shop collapsed. The woman in the screen of light glared at Su Ming with hatred. At that moment, her elegance had long since disappeared. That hateful look on her face was rather similar to Madame G's in the past. As the booming sounds reverberated in the air, two long arcs charged towards them from the sky in the distance. In the span of a breath, they closed in and landed beside Su Ming, turning into a man and a woman. The man was naturally Nan Gonghen. As for the woman, she was cold and aloof once she appeared. Naturally, she was Nan Gongshan. She stared at Su Ming's back, and no one knew what she was thinking. Nan Gonghen's face was dark. He swept his gaze across the area, and when he saw the medial shaman's corpse with the center of his brows pierced through, his gaze froze for a moment. But when he saw the man whose entire body was already rotting away, but was still alive, his pupils shrank. Brother Mo, this is... Nan Gonghen hesitated for a moment. He had naturally also seen the woman with hatred on her face in the screen of light. Nan Gonghen, this has nothing to do with you. This is a personal grudge between Eastern Goosefoot tribe and this person. She was the daughter of the clan chief, and had seen many things since she was young. Therefore, she could tell that if Nan Gonghen got involved, it would be very disadvantageous for her. Mo, if you have the ability, then don't leave Shaman City immediately. Now that I've activated the screen of light, my tribe uncle will immediately come here. I'd like to see just how arrogant you can be before a ladder shaman. Even if you want to resolve this matter now, it's impossible. The young woman spoke word by word, her voice filled with malice. Nan Gonghen's expression was gloomy. He turned his head to look at the youth with the withered right arm. When he had first agreed to help the youth through his cultivation as a spirit medium, he had learned of the youth's relationship with the Eastern Goosefoot tribe. However, he had not cared. With his status in the Sorcerer God's Temple, he was certain that even if the Eastern Goosefoot tribe found out, it would not affect him. Yet the change in the situation had dragged Mo Su into it. This gave Nan Gonghen a huge headache. He could tell with just one glance what was going on. If he really backed out of this, then there would be no need for him to get to know Su Ming anymore. Do you guys still have recommendation votes? To be continued. If you like this work, then please come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 465. This is a misunderstanding. Nan Gonghen smiled bitterly. However, before he could finish speaking, the young woman in the light screen immediately spoke in a cold voice. Nan Gonghen, he killed 3 of my guards. Nan Gonghen's words faltered. Just as he was thinking about what he should say, Su Ming smiled. Brother Nan Gong, don't get involved in this. Help me take care of the 2 children. Once I'm done here, we'll continue drinking. As Su Ming spoke, he looked at the woman in the screen of light. As for the ladder shaman of your Donglai tribe, I really want to see how much stronger a ladder shaman is compared to me. Su Ming did not lie, neither did he exaggerate. He had a nascent soul clone, a poison corpse in the Berserker soul realm, and a wind Berserker's legacy. You want to know just how great the difference between him and a ladder shaman was. As for the problem of exposing his identity, with a complicated mix of immortal power, Berserker power, and a shaman curse in Su Ming's body, even an end shaman would find it difficult to see through his origins. After all, Hong Luo's Tao of Rebirth had wiped away Su Ming's presence. If even Di Tian found it difficult to detect him, then it was even more so for other people. Su Ming's words caused Nan Gonghen to immediately swallow the words he had thought of to resolve the situation. He looked at Su Ming and was shocked in his heart. At that moment, he once again gained an estimation of Su Ming's level of cultivation. By the looks of it, Su Ming seemed to want to fight against a ladder shaman. If any other medial shaman said this, he would not believe it. However, Su Ming had brought quite a lot of shock to him. His strange senses and his ability to sense danger could be said to be unimaginable. There were also the 2 corpses he had seen just now. The first one had clearly been killed with just 1 strike. The strange thing was the second one. By the looks of it, it seemed to be a curse. This caused Nangong Hen to be shocked, but at the same time, he found himself unable to speak. Instead, he nodded towards Su Ming. When she heard Su Ming saying that he wanted to fight against a ladder shaman, the woman in the screen of light looked as if she had just heard a great joke, and a derisive look appeared on her face. You boast shamelessly, you're extremely arrogant. You're just a mere medial shaman. How dare you say such things? Once my tribe uncle comes, I'd like to see whether you'll still dare to say such words. The boy beside her also let out a huge sigh of relief. With the protection of the screen of light, he was much less afraid. At that moment, he glared at Su Ming coldly, and his eyes were filled with hatred. This happened in an incredibly bustling street in Shaman City. As the matter progressed, it had already attracted quite a number of people's attention. The bystanders did not feel any pressure when it came to this sort of bustling event. Most of them looked at the area with the attitude of watching a show. When he cast his gaze over the area, he found that there were hundreds of people who had their gazes trained on the area. There were quite a number of shamans outside who had heard their companion's message and had rushed over. Isn't that Madame Zhao of the Donglai tribe? Back in the day, she was the #1 beauty of the Donglai tribe. Even though the Eastern Goosefoot tribe is not a large tribe, it is still a large tribe. Even though there are no shamans in the tribe, I heard that there are 4 ladder shamans. Who is this masked man? How did he offend the Eastern Goosefoot tribe? Interesting. Madame Zhao of the East Goosefoot tribe was actually forced to take out a protective screen of light. I remember that this is a protective technique that only the core members of the larger tribes possess. Once this screen of light is activated, the surrounding tribe members will immediately sense it. Su Ming placed his hands behind his back and stood there, looking at the sky without a single word. Lon Lon and the other 2 looked slightly panicked, but when they saw Su Ming's relaxed demeanor, they slowly calmed down. Their eyes were filled with anticipation, but there was also a hint of nervousness within them. Time trickled by. After the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn, the woman in the screen of light became anxious. Logically speaking, once the screen of light was activated, the tribe uncle in the tribe should have arrived soon, but he had yet to arrive. Su Ming's relaxed and calm demeanor at that moment also gave her some pressure. Su Ming averted his gaze from the sky and looked at the woman in the screen of light before he spoke languidly. It's already the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn, but your ladder shaman still hasn't arrived. If that's the case, then I won't wait any longer. As Su Ming spoke, he walked toward the screen of light. The boy beside the woman immediately became nervous, but the woman only smiled coldly. She did not believe that Su Ming would be able to break this screen of light within a short period of time. Su Ming walked slowly towards the screen of light. He lifted his right hand and touched it gently. Immediately, a strong rebound force appeared, causing his right hand to bounce back several inches. When the woman saw this, she let out a sigh of relief in her heart and spoke with a cold sneer. You won't be able to break this screen of light. Su Ming cast the woman a calm look, then turned around and walked into the distance with his back towards the screen of light. Why are you leaving? Could it be that you don't dare to continue waiting? Even if my tribe uncle is late, what can you do to us? The protection of this screen of light is not something you can break. Didn't you say you were going to break our legs? Didn't you say you were going to wait for my tribe uncle to come? Why are you afraid now? The woman immediately mocked him. She was worried that Su Ming would run away, and her words were filled with provocation. She was not the only one. The shamans who were watching this also laughed. It was clear that they were mocking Su Ming's previous unyielding attitude and his decision to leave. However, most of them agreed with Su Ming's actions. After all, a ladder shaman could appear at any moment. If they continued waiting, then they would only be waiting for death. If it was anyone else, they would have run away a long time ago. Su Ming ignored the woman. Once he walked 100-something feet away, his footsteps came to an abrupt halt. He lifted his right hand and turned around swiftly. Immediately, a black spiked club appeared in his right hand. That spiked club was entirely black. When it appeared, a primitive and wild air rose from it. Once Su Ming held it in his hands, he turned around and swung the spiked club upwards, then smashed it down on the screen of light 100-something feet away from him. The instant the spiked club was lifted, its size instantly changed, and it became 100-something feet long. Its thickness was equally shocking, causing an uproar to immediately stir up in the area. The club let out a hum in the sky and stirred up a piercing whistle as it sliced through the air. It was as if it contained an unimaginable weight. It drew a black fan in midair, and the woman widened her eyes in shock. At that instant, it was as if a gigantic mountain had fallen down and covered the moonlight in the sky, forming a long shadow on the ground that crashed into the screen of light. A loud boom that shook the sky, and earth instantly erupted from the screen of light. That boom was so strong that it was deafening to the ears. The instant it drowned out the uproar in the area, the screen of light shone with a powerful light. As it flickered violently, 9 teeth pierced through the top of the screen of light. The entire screen of light let out a soundless creaking sound, as if it had withstood the attack and shattered. Eventually, with a bang, it exploded in all directions. When it exploded, the shocking spiked club fell on the ground with a bang, bringing with it a remnant of its might. It caused the ground to tremble a few times, and the houses in the area also started trembling. Dust flew into the air. As the ground trembled, fine cracks appeared. Those cracks spread out in all directions, and as they let out cracking sounds, they spread to an area of about 1,000 feet, causing the ground to look at it to be enough to make anyone suck in a sharp breath. It was a terrifying sight to behold. Not a single hint of damage could be detected on the gigantic spiked club. As it spread out that wild and primitive presence, there was even a chilling air around it. At the same time, all the people who saw this scene sucked in a sharp breath. Their hearts trembled, and they were all intimidated. Su Ming held the black spiked club in his hand, and when he slowly lifted it once again, the spiked club rapidly shrank until it eventually disappeared from his hand. The woman's face turned stark pale, and she staggered a few steps backwards. She looked at the ground, then at Su Ming, and her face was filled with shock. She was flabbergasted. The boy beside her fell to the ground as he trembled. He was so terrified that he was about to break down. "I can't open it," Su Ming asked flatly. After a short period of silence, a loud uproar immediately erupted in the area. The scene just now was deeply imprinted in the minds of all those who had witnessed it, and it would not disappear. The might of that one swing from the spiked club and the strength of its presence was enough to make all those who faced it feel as if they could not fight back. Who is that? What enchanted vessel is that? He actually managed to forcefully break the screen of light with just one strike. What great strength! That person borrowed the power of the enchanted vessel. The spiked club's weight must have already reached an incredibly terrifying level. That's why even if he just borrowed the power of the spiked club and smashed it, it's still enough to shatter the screen of light. But no matter what, when a normal medial shaman faces this person, there's no way he can fight back. As the people around her discussed amongst themselves, for the first time, despair appeared in the woman's eyes. She regretted her actions toward the 3 boys just now. Nan Gong Hen sucked in a sharp breath. When he saw Su Ming putting away the black spiked club, his estimation of Su Ming's strength increased once again. He knew that even if he could avoid the power of that club, he would have to pay a great price. He was already wary of Su Ming to begin with, and right then, that wariness grew even stronger. At the same time, his desire to befriend Su Ming grew even stronger. A glint appeared in Nan Gongshan's eyes. When she looked at Su Ming, there was uncertainty in her eyes. As for Lon Lon and Ahu, once they recovered from their shock, they immediately started cheering. After all, they were still children. It was very easy for them to idolize powerful berserkers, especially powerful berserkers around them. Right then, in their eyes, Su Ming's strength made them so excited that it was as if they were the ones who had done that. As the woman fell into despair, the screen of light exploded, and her body trembled. A dark, cold harumph suddenly traveled forth from the sky in the distance. 5 long arcs charged towards them from the sky, and the person in the lead was an old man with silver hair. His face was livid, and behind him were 4 people, all of whom had extraordinary power. The 5 of them had clearly ignored the rule that forbade flying within 100 leagues of Shaman City and were rushing over. Tribe Uncle. The woman looked as if she had found hope in the midst of her despair. At that moment, she stood up swiftly and spoke excitedly. Su Ming's face was incredibly grave under the mask, but there was an overflowing fighting spirit in his eyes. He sucked in a deep breath and circulated his cultivation base. The dust under his feet spread outwards in circles, and he lifted his head to look. There are a few things regarding the signing of Against Immortal in Beijing, 25th, and Shanghai, 26th one. Details of the event in Beijing. Time, 25th of August, 2012, 9:30 a.m., first floor of Shidan Book Building, 2. Details of the event in Shanghai. Time, 26th of August, 2012, 14:30 p.m., first floor of Shanghai Book City, Fuzhou Road. If you like this work, please come to Chidian. Come and vote for it. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 466. The silver-haired old man's face was livid with rage. He charged towards the ground and stood before the woman in the span of a breath. At the same time, the 4 people behind him descended as well. Tribe Uncle, this person. When the woman saw the old man arriving, she finally let out a huge sigh of relief in her heart. She was just about to speak when, shut up. The silver-haired old man let out a cold harumph. His voice was like thunder, causing the woman to immediately shudder and lower her head, not daring to make another sound. The boy by her side also trembled and lowered his head, not daring to speak. The silver-haired old man did not even look at Su Ming and spoke to his 4 followers in a low voice. Bring her and her son back. She's already causing trouble the moment she comes to Shaman City. Senior, this person can't leave just yet, Su Ming said unhurriedly as he stood there. As he spoke, the old man's gaze fell on Su Ming with an aloof expression. Once he cast him a glance, he shifted his gaze and looked at Nan Gong Hen, who was smiling wryly by the side. Nan Gong Hen, my boy, is this person related to the god of Shaman's temple? This is... Nan Gong Hen hesitated for a moment before he gritted his teeth. Senior Tai Mu, Brother Imo might not be related to the god of Shaman's temple, but he is my friend. The moment Nan Gong Hen said those words, the silver-haired old man waved his arm, and instantly, a huge gust of wind appeared out of nowhere and turned into an illusory wave before the old man that charged forward with a howl. The wave came too suddenly, and a barely noticeable glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes. The instant the illusory wave closed in on him, he took a swift step forward, then took 7 to 8 steps to the left, right, and back. He looked as if he had taken a few circles, and a whirlwind instantly appeared around him, crashing into the wave in the blink of an eye. Booming sounds reverberated in the air. The vortex around Su Ming lasted for the span of several breaths before it shattered. At the same time, he took 4 steps back. With each step, the ground would tremble faintly, and deep footprints would appear on the ground. It was especially so when he took the 4th step. Fine cracks instantly spread out from under Su Ming's feet. In fact, as the cracks on the ground spread out, an illusion of water waves spread out in all directions. As for Nan Gong Hen, his expression changed greatly when the illusory wave arrived. He staggered back several dozen feet before stopping. As for Nan Gong Shan, she wasn't too close to begin with, so when the cold aura surged from her body, she didn't retreat. Then don't get involved. Only at this moment did the silver-haired old man's hoarse voice ring out. As for you, tell me the name of your tribe. The silver-haired old man put down his arm and looked at Su Ming with a ghastly look. As a great shaman, he had gone through far too many things in his life, and his intelligence was definitely not something that the woman could compare to. Even at that moment, he could still suppress his anger. He He would only decide how severe his attacks would be if he wanted to fight against this person. As long as Su Ming was not connected to the god of Shaman's temple, as long as Su Ming was not a member of one of the big tribes, as long as Su Ming was not an ally of Easter Goosefoot tribe, then he could kill without hesitation. What he wanted was an answer from Su Ming's mouth. If he refused to answer, then it was fine. He could just kill him, and he would also be standing on the side of reason. Even if Su Ming truly had some sort of background, Tai Mu had indeed asked, and if he refused to answer, then it would have nothing to do with him. I'm from a small tribe. I don't think you know me, Senior Tai Mu. Su Ming smiled faintly. He had learned of the old man's name from Nangong Hen just now. With a calm expression, he wrapped his fist in his palm and bowed towards the old man. You're from a small tribe and have no connection to the god of Shaman's temple. Then, what gave you the guts to kill a member of Eastern Goosefoot tribe? A freezing glare appeared in Tai Mu's eyes. Kill him on the spot. As Tai Mu spoke, killing intent immediately appeared in the eyes of the four people behind him, and they turned into four long arcs that charged towards Su Ming. Su Ming stood there, and the instant the four people closed in on him, he frowned slightly. He lifted his right foot and took a step forward. The instant his foot landed, an extreme burst of speed erupted from Su Ming's body, and in a flash, he shot through the four incoming long arcs. As he lifted his right hand, green light shone, and the small virescent sword grew in size. As Su Ming closed in on him and slashed downwards, the small sword immediately stirred up a piercing whistle as it sliced down towards the old Tai Mu. Tai Mu let out a cold harumph. He lifted his right hand and clenched his fist, then hurled it straight towards the small sword that was slicing down. The instant he hurled his fist forward, the shadow of a raging sea manifested behind him. As his fist rumbled, raging waves stirred up in the seawater and surrounded his right hand, causing the old man's hand to be unable to be seen from the distance. Only the raging waves could be seen. With a bang, the waves crashed into Su Ming's virescent sword. At the same time, a huge force traveled from the sword into Su Ming's body. He let out a muffled groan, and Han Mountain Bell manifested around him. With a single move, he appeared on the other side of the old man. A red light shone on two of his right fingers, and with an extreme speed, he pointed towards the old man. The old man frowned and instantly closed his eyes before reopening them. As he did so, he let out a low growl. That growl was like thunder, and once it tumbled out of the old man's mouth, it turned into a wave of sound that surged into the sky, causing a large amount of ripples to appear in the air around him. In fact, there were even traces of cracks appearing in the air due to the tremors. Su Ming was the first to be affected by the roar of that wave of sound. Sharp stabs of pain pierced through his fingers on his right hand. He immediately retreated at full speed and retreated about 80 feet away before he managed to regain his footing. A mouthful of blood flowed out of the corner of his mouth. At the same time, the four long arcs charged towards Su Ming from behind. Just as they were about to close in on him, old Tai Mu suddenly spoke. The four of you come back. You're not his opponent. The four long arcs froze for a moment before they immediately shot up from the ground and charged towards old Tai Mu in midair. They turned into people once again and appeared behind him. The four of them frowned and looked at Su Ming with hostility. As expected of a ladder shaman, Senior Tai Mu, as a ladder battle shaman, your physical strength has already surpassed that of immortals and entered the realm of sainthood. I might be untalented, but I'd like to learn from you once again. Su Ming wiped off the blood at the corners of his mouth, and the desire to fight burned in his eyes. You overestimate yourself. Within 5 breaths, I'll take your life. Tai Mu lifted his right foot and stomped on the ground. With that one step, the ground immediately started trembling furiously. A strong rebound also came from the ground under Su Ming's body, and he swiftly leapt up. Yet the instant he leapt up, Tai Mu used the force from that stomp to leap into the air. He clenched his right hand into a fist and hurled it straight towards Su Ming. With that one punch, a wave manifested behind him, and with the raging wave, it turned into a gigantic greenback shark. That shark opened its mouth wide and charged toward Su Ming. At the same time, the first breath passed. Soon after, right after Tai Mu hurled his fist forward, he swiftly pulled it back and hurled another punch forward. The second punch caused the sky and earth to rumble. Waves spread out in all directions and almost covered half of the sky. At the same time, the waves stirred up, and as they rushed towards Su Ming, they turned into a pitch-black octopus with numerous tentacles that charged towards Su Ming amidst the waves. This was the second breath. When the third breath arrived, Tai Mu hurled his third punch in midair. With that one punch, the illusionary wave that surrounded the sky rose up once again and turned into a gigantic dark turtle. With a swing of its tail, it sliced through the air and charged towards Su Ming. After the third punch, Tai Mu looked at Su Ming in midair, and his gaze was as if he was looking at a dead man. He was confident that this medial shaman before him, whose level of cultivation was still above average, would not be able to withstand the first three styles of his four-beast fist. The shamans who saw this on the ground all felt their hearts tremble. They now had a deep understanding towards the might of a latter shaman, and they all fell silent. As they saw the wave roaring in the sky and the three ferocious sea beasts charging towards Su Ming, surrounded by seawater, Su Ming found it impossible to dodge. A brilliant light appeared in his eyes. Latter battle shaman. Su Ming immediately lifted his hands and turned them into a series of afterimages before him. Once he formed a few seals, a black light shone around his body, and Han Mountain Bell manifested. The instant it enveloped Su Ming's body, shocking roars came from Han Mountain Bell. As those roars and the three ferocious sea beasts closed in, a sight that shocked all the people on the ground appeared before their eyes. It was a ferocious beast. It had 9 heads, and 6 of them had their eyes open as they looked towards the sky. That ferocious beast had manifested from Han Mountain Bell around Su Ming's body. The moment it appeared, the power of the world around it surged towards it, causing its body to instantly gain physical form. As it roared, the 6 heads crashed into the 3 sea beasts. For the first time, Tai Mu's expression changed. Su Ming's strength surprised him. Without any hesitation, Tai Mu lifted his right hand once again and hurled his 4th punch towards Su Ming. That punch immediately caused all the seawater around Su Ming to be lifted up. Once it charged higher into the sky, there was no longer any seawater around Su Ming. At the same time, the seawater that had risen into the sky above him gathered together and turned into a gigantic fist. That fist was entirely blue and was formed by seawater. It looked to be several hundreds of feet in size, and as it fell with a bang, it charged towards the 9-headed beast. Booming sounds reverberated in the air at that instant and spread through the entire shaman city, catching the attention of all the shamans. In fact, the expressions of the berserkers and immortals who had come to Shaman City changed, and they immediately looked towards that direction. As the booming sounds lingered in the air, the illusionary seawater disappeared from the spot where Su Ming and Tai Mu were fighting. The 3 sea beasts' bodies were torn to shreds, and the gigantic fist in the sky also crumbled inch by inch before disappearing. Tai Mu's face was dark. He stood in midair and looked at Su Ming, who appeared before him once the 9-headed beast shattered and disappeared. You're quite strong, but if you want to fight against me, you're still overestimating yourself. Tai Mu let out a cold harumph and walked towards Su Ming. Killing intent shone in his eyes. Is that so? Su Ming wiped off the blood at the corner of his mouth and smiled. To be continued. If you like this work, please come to Chidian. Come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 467. When he saw Su Ming smile, Tai Mu frowned. He was not the only one reacting this way. At that moment, all the people on the ground underneath were puzzled by Su Ming's smile and words. Even if Su Ming's performance was extraordinary in the face of a post-battle shaman, that was all. There was not much room for comparison between the two of them. Even if Su Ming had looked as if he had used all his strength just now and was at a disadvantage against Tai Mu. It had to be known that besides having a slightly dark expression on his face, Tai Mu was not injured in the slightest. As for Su Ming, the blood at the corner of his mouth was a terrifying sight. According to almost everyone's expectations, Tai Mu only needed to attack once more, and Su Ming would definitely not be able to fight back. The only outcome for him would be death. How dare he challenge a ladder shaman as a medial shaman? I told you just now, this person will definitely die. His courage is commendable, but he's not smart enough. This sort of challenge is no different from seeking death. That's a ladder shaman. An old monster who can become a ladder shaman is an absolute powerhouse in the shaman tribe. There's no way a medial shaman can fight against him. Nangong Hen's heart was filled with bitterness as the numerous gazes fell upon him. However, a resolute look appeared in his eyes. He had already made up his mind. He would let Senior Tai Mu calm down first, and then, no matter what, he would try to save Imo Su. He believed that Tai Mu would probably spare Imo Su's life for the sake of his old man. As for Nangong Shan, she frowned. Her aloof gaze remained on Su Ming, and at that moment, the uncertainty in her eyes grew stronger. Su Ming sucked in a deep breath as he stood in the sky. With one move, a layer of black fog immediately spread out from his chest. That black fog spread out rapidly, but in an instant, it gathered together and turned into a tall person who was completely black. That person had no hair. His entire body was black, and under the moonlight, there was a slight reflection. It was as if his skin was covered in scales, and his eyes were cold. It was Su Ming's nascent soul clone, the puppet that was formed from Ji Yunhai's corpse. The moment the clone appeared, green light shone at the center of Su Ming's brows. The small virescent sword flew up and surrounded the clone's head, letting out waves of freezing glare and sword whistles. The moment the clone appeared, the crowd below immediately let out cries of surprise. Quite a number of people recognized what Su Ming's clone was. Soul Catcher's puppet. This person is a soul catcher. He's actually a soul catcher. No wonder I felt a little weird when I saw his gaze. So he's a soul catcher. As a soul catcher wizard, why didn't he use the soul catcher technique earlier? However, this puppet is definitely a soul catcher puppet. A barely noticeable frown appeared between Tai Mu's brows. All of Su Ming's method surprised him. To him, this person was definitely not from a small tribe. Forget about the flying sword that was incredibly similar to the immortals. Forget about the bell that was clearly a valuable treasure. Just the puppet alone was enough to tell that it was incredibly extraordinary. It was even to the extent that he felt that this puppet was faintly familiar, but he couldn't recall where he had seen it. Most importantly, he felt threatened by this puppet. Although this kind of threat was faintly discernible, it made him vigilant. Senior Tai Mu, I am untalented. I would like to challenge you again. Su Ming said slowly, and the fighting spirit in his eyes grew stronger. No wonder you're so fearless when facing me. Do you think that you can fight me with just a puppet? To me, you're still overestimating your own abilities. Tai Mu smiled coldly and took a step forward. He had already made up his mind. He had to end this battle as soon as possible, or else his reputation would be damaged if he wasted so much time just to kill a medial shaman in front of so many people in Shaman City. As he took a step forward, blue light surrounded Tai Mu's face, and ripples that looked like waves appeared in his eyes. In a flash, he charged towards Su Ming. An extremely powerful aura was emitted from his body. This aura was so powerful that the pressure it formed immediately caused the surrounding void to crackle. Su Ming immediately retreated. As he lifted his right hand, black light shone in his hand, and the spiked club immediately manifested. At the same time, his nascent soul clone charged forward. As he charged forward, the clone lifted his right hand, formed a seal, and seized the air in the direction of the ground. With it, the ground within a circular area of several thousands of feet trembled, and it was soon followed by a large amount of white fog that shot out from the ground. In an instant, it charged into the sky and gathered into an azure dragon that was 1,000 feet big beside the right hand of Su Ming's nascent soul clone. Earthen Aura Dragon Vein. This was Hong Luo's unique divine ability, and he had only used it when he fought against Tion. Most people had never seen it before. If Hong Luo cast it, he could cause the earthen aura within a circular area of 10,000 lis to gather together, and he could even summon the real god of dragon veins. However, Su Ming's clone's power could not compare to Hong Luo's. He was only in the nascent soul stage. However, Su Ming had obtained Hong Luo's legacy regarding the path to life, and he knew most of his arts and divine abilities. After understanding them for a year, he could also cast some of them, but their power was much weaker. However, Hong Luo's enemy was Tion, and the person Su Ming was going to fight against was a ladder shaman, Tai Mu, who was much weaker than Tion. In fact, he could not even compare to him. The appearance of the earthen aura azure dragon caused Tai Mu's expression to change. He moved forward even faster, and when he closed in, Su Ming's clone grabbed the earthen aura azure dragon and threw it towards Tai Mu without a single word. As the earthen aura azure dragon appeared, a violent uproar broke out from the crowd underneath. They had never seen this sort of divine ability from Su Ming before, and when they saw that Su Ming's puppet could absorb the aura from the ground, the shock in their hearts grew incredibly strong. The instant the earthen aura azure dragon crashed into Tai Mu, he lifted his right hand and hurled a punch forward. Ode of the Four Seas, first ode of the Eastern Seas. Tai Mu growled. When he hurled his fist forward, the ocean manifested once again before him. The azure, blue seawater stirred up raging waves and charged towards the earthen aura azure dragon. The seawater looked similar to Tai Mu's divine ability, but if anyone took a closer look at it, they would immediately notice that the seawater looked as if it had gained physical form. It was as if it had truly appeared and was not an illusion. In fact, the dampness of the sea and the stench of blood even came crashing into their nostrils. The instant it crashed into the earthen aura azure dragon, booming sounds reverberated through the entire sky. Second song, South Sea. Tai Mu spread, opened his left palm, and pushed it towards the south. Immediately, a layer of crimson seawater manifested to his south. At first glance, that seawater looked like a sea of blood. As it roared, waves tumbled about and crashed down on Su Ming's clone and his real body. Su Ming's clone did not check it. Instead, he quickly formed a seal with his hands before him and pushed them to his sides. 9 transformations, 10 transformations, one same, white mountain, black water, 1,000 faces. Transfiguration into divinity. These 3 sentences contained 7 types of divine abilities and arts. They were the strongest divine abilities Hong Luo had in the early stages of his arts. He had obtained them from an immortal's ruin, and he did not know where they came from. However, even if it was Hong Luo, he had only scratched the surface of these 7 abilities. He did not study them in depth, and instead focused on communicating with the Qi of the earth, turning the Qi of the earth into blood, and drawing the 10 lives. Hong Luo believed that the earth had life, and earthen aura was the earth's breath. Then there was definitely blood on the earth, just like how humans did. That blood was not from rivers or oceans, but was hidden deep within the earth. Only earthen aura contained some of the earth's blood. He could use earthen aura to stir up that blood, and only then could he complete the art of purging the heavens with blood. Since the earth had life, then by fusing with it and using it as a reference, he could cast the immortal's origin divine ability. 10 lives. It could be said that Hong Luo was walking down the traditional path of the immortals. As for the 7 arts, he had only studied them briefly. However, with Su Ming's current level of cultivation, he could not cast the art of purging the heavens with blood. His focus was on the 7 arts that Hong Luo had neglected. That was why those arts could only be used by those in the nascent soul stage. 9 transformations. At that moment, as Su Ming's clone formed a seal with his hands and pushed them to his sides, he immediately shuddered and clenched his right hand into a fist before hurling it towards Tai Mu from a great distance away. That punch might have seemed to be powerless, but at that moment, It did not matter whether it was his expression or his actions. Su Ming's clone was exactly the same as when Tai Mu executed the first Ode of the Four Seas. Change could be understood as a deeper level of imitation. He would use his own power to imitate another person's divine abilities. Once Su Ming's clone hurled his fist forward, a deep blue ocean immediately appeared before him. Besides being much smaller, that ocean was no different from Tai Mu's art. Shock appeared on Tai Mu's face, but what shocked him even more was Su Ming's clone's subsequent actions. Imitation was only a part of the 9 transformations art. The true transformation was the first transformation, the second transformation, up to the 9th transformation, as if the divine ability had evolved after the imitation. With each transformation, the power of the art would increase exponentially, but the amount of power needed to cast, it would also increase by leaps and bounds. First transformation. Su Ming's clone spoke swiftly. As his voice reverberated in the air, his body charged straight into the ocean he had summoned. Once he fused with it, the ocean looked as if it was boiling. At the same time, white steam spread out from it. The area it covered instantly increased in size. Raging waves surged into the sky, and a large amount of bubbles continuously popped and appeared. As the bubbles popped, red liquid spread out and dyed the seawater crimson. Third Ode of the Western Sea. Killing intent shone in Tai Mu's eyes. Su Ming's strength had already shocked him, but he was still confident that he could suppress this person. However, Su Ming's strength was something he had never thought that there would be a medial shaman who could fight against him to this extent with all sorts of methods. He could even imagine that if he let this person escape, then it would definitely not be a good thing for his tribe. Besides, this person was already like this. If he had the chance to become a ladder shaman, then Eastern Goosefoot tribe would have to pay a great price for the grudge they had formed today. I'm begging the Demon Alliance. I managed to become one of them in half a year. I'm feeling really excited. I'll release my acceptance speech later. I'm going out tomorrow. I have a lot of things to prepare. To be continued. If you like this work, please come to Chidian. Come and vote for me. Your support is my greatest motivation. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.